Next we have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This game is like every Star Wars fan's dream come to life. Seriously, if you've ever imagined wielding a lightsaber, dodging blaster shots, or facing off against terrifying Sith enemies, Fallen Order is the game for you. It just pulls you in and makes you feel like a Jedi in training, and it's just so much fun. This game takes you all over the Star Wars galaxy, from lush forests to crumbling ancient ruins, and everything in between. Each planet has its own feel, its own mysteries, and its own set of enemies and challenges. There's this amazing sense of adventure as you move from planet to planet, uncovering secrets, exploring caves, and finding new paths. And the level design is a blast. It's got that classic Metroidvania vibe, where you keep discovering new abilities that let you access areas you couldn't reach before. You're constantly rewarded for exploring and backtracking, which just makes the whole journey so satisfying. Swinging a lightsaber in Fallen Order feels right. There's a weight to it, and when you deflect a blaster bolt back at a stormtrooper, pure joy. The combat strikes this perfect balance between fun and challenging. It's not button mashing. You actually have to time your attacks, parries, and dodges to succeed, which makes every encounter feel intense and meaningful. Plus, as you go along, you get to customize your lightsaber. You can pick different colors, hilts, and other parts to make it feel like your weapon, which is just such a cool touch. Fallen Order has an incredible story. Spec Ops: The Line. It's one of those games that messes with your expectations in the best way. I remember going into it thinking, oh, just another military shooter, right? At first glance, it looks like your standard third-person cover shooter. You're leading a squad, you've got your guns, sandstorms everywhere because it's set in Dubai, and it all seems pretty straightforward, but as you dig deeper, that's where things start to unravel. The story pulls you in directions you don't expect, and it really makes you question your choices, like seriously question them. What I loved about Spec Ops: The Line is how it uses the setting and the characters to play with your mind. You start feeling like the hero, but after certain missions you're like, wait, am I doing the right thing here? The game gets into some heavy stuff about the horrors of war and the consequences of your actions, which is something most shooters don't really touch on. It's more than just, go here, shoot this. There's a layer of guilt and responsibility that weighs on you by the end. Plus, the gameplay is solid. I mean, the shooting mechanics are great, the cover system works well, and the environmental destruction with the sandstorms is a cool twist. But really, the gameplay is just a vehicle for the narrative, and that's what elevates this game from being just another shooter to something special. You don't see a lot of games that really make you reflect on the violence in that way. Honestly, if you're into games that challenge you emotionally and mentally, while still delivering fun, engaging action, Spec Ops is a must. Lies of P. It's one of those games that takes a classic story and flips it into something totally unexpected. I mean, a dark, twisted version of Pinocchio? Who saw that coming? From the moment I started playing, I knew this wasn't going to be the fairy tale we all grew up with. Instead, it throws you into this grim, steampunk world where everything feels eerie and dangerous. The atmosphere is on point. There's this constant tension in the air, like you're never quite safe, even when you're just walking through a quiet alley. The game wears its inspirations on its sleeve, and if you've played Bloodborne or Dark Souls, you'll feel right at home here. The combat is that familiar, deliberate style, where every swing of your weapon matters, and timing is everything. But Lies of P adds its own twist, with the weapon customization system. You can mix and match blades and handles to create your own combos, which gives you a ton of freedom to experiment with different builds. It's honestly so satisfying when you find a combination that just clicks with your playstyle. The enemies are no joke. Each one feels like a real threat, and you can't just rush in and expect to button mash your way through. You've got to be patient, learn their patterns, and strike when the moment is right. And the bosses? They're some of the most intense encounters I've had in a while. Every time I thought I was getting the hang of things, a new boss would come along and completely wreck me. But in the best way. It's that feeling of frustration followed by pure joy when you finally take them down. If you're into challenging combat, Lies of P is definitely worth your time. Dark Souls 3. This game is like a test of your patience, skill, and determination, but in the most rewarding way. It's tough, no doubt about it, but that's what makes it so satisfying. If you're into games that push you, Dark Souls 3 is an experience you won't forget. First off, the world. The atmosphere in this game is just something else. Every area feels heavy with history. Like the ruins and castles you walk through have seen centuries of battles and chaos. There's this haunting beauty to it, you know? You're walking through these desolate, crumbling places, but at the same time, they're gorgeous. It really pulls you in, like you just want to explore every corner, even if it means getting your ass kicked. And speaking of getting your ass kicked, the combat. Man, it's brutal. But once you get the hang of it, it's like a dance. You can't just go in swinging like in other games. Timing, dodging, and learning your enemy's moves are key. Every fight, whether it's a basic enemy or one of those insane bosses, feels like a challenge that you're either going to conquer or get humbled by. One thing I love about Dark Souls 3 is how it respects you as a player. It doesn't hold your hand or give you a bunch of tutorials. You're just thrown into this dark, dangerous world and expected to figure it out. At first, it's super intimidating, but you start picking up on little things. The lore, how the world is connected, the strategies you need to survive. It's almost like you're part of a secret club where you learn by trial and error, and the payoff is huge. Of Kena Bridge of Spirits. From the moment I started playing, I was just blown away by how stunning everything looked. It's like stepping into a Pixar movie, but you're in control. The art style is so vibrant and colorful, and the way they bring this magical world to life is just mesmerizing. Every detail feels like it was handcrafted with so much love, from the lush forests to the little creatures, the rot. I mean, those rot are just adorable, right? They're like these little black, fluffy creatures that follow you around, and they're not only cute, they're super helpful too. The gameplay, though, man, that's where it gets really fun. It's got that action-adventure feel, with some Zelda-like puzzle-solving and exploration. The combat is super smooth, and the combination of your staff attacks and the rot helping you out is such a cool mechanic. I loved how you can use the rot to distract enemies or empower your attacks. And the way the game gradually gives you new abilities keeps things fresh. Plus, those boss fights, some of them are tough, like way tougher than I expected. They really make you strategize, which is a nice surprise in a game that looks so cozy on the surface. And speaking of cozy, the world is just so nice to explore. The puzzles are really well designed too, not too hard, but they make you feel smart when you solve them. I remember one where you had to use the rot to move objects around and align things just right, and it was just the perfect balance of challenge and satisfaction. Death Stranding, one of the most divisive games out there. When this game dropped, it was like half the gaming community loved it, and the other half was just like, what is this? It's a Hideo Kojima game, so you know it was going to be unique. But Death Stranding took that to a whole new level. Instead of fast-paced action or combat-heavy gameplay, you're a delivery guy in a post-apocalyptic world. It's a game about walking, hiking, and, yes, carrying boxes. People were super confused by the whole concept, especially because the marketing was so mysterious. The trailers didn't really explain much, and when players realized they'd be spending a lot of time delivering packages across desolate landscapes, some were disappointed. It wasn't the action-packed game people expected from the creator of Metal Gear Solid. But here's where the game shines. Death Stranding isn't trying to be a traditional game. It's about the journey, the connections you make, and the feeling of isolation in a broken world. And if you get into that mindset, the game is really something special. It's strangely relaxing, even though it has some seriously intense moments. The way it handles the idea of connecting players, allowing you to help out others in the world by leaving equipment or building structures, was pretty innovative. It made the world feel shared, even though it's a single-player game. Sure, it's not for everyone. If you're looking for constant action, Death Stranding might not be your cup of tea, but if you're in the mood for something different, something that really takes its time to build atmosphere, it's a game that delivers a unique experience. Dragon's Dogma 2. You know, after playing this game, I have to say it really exceeded my expectations. I mean, I was excited going in, sure, but once I actually got my hands on it, I realized just how much Capcom stepped up their game. Everything feels bigger, better, and more immersive than the first one. First off, the world is massive. I remember just wandering around for hours, not even on a quest, just exploring. The sense of adventure is so strong here. Every corner of the map feels like it has something interesting to uncover. Whether it's a hidden cave, a random group of enemies, or just a breathtaking view, you always feel like you're discovering something new. The combat, though, that's where the game shines. It's fast, fluid, and really customizable. I spent so much time tweaking my character's build, trying out different classes. One moment I was a nimble strider, darting around enemies, and the next I was a towering warrior smashing through everything. Every fight feels dynamic. especially with the new monster encounters. Those big hulking creatures, they're no joke. Climbing onto their backs mid-fight is such a rush. But what I loved most was the pawn system. They've really refined it. My pawn wasn't just a sidekick, they were essential. I grew so attached to them, seeing how they adapted to my playstyle. Sometimes I felt like they were learning faster than I was. It's cool to see your pawn in someone else's game too. I got some great items because other players were borrowing mine and leveling them up. A Way Out. This game really caught me off guard in the best way possible. If you've ever wanted a true co-op experience, like a game where you have to rely on another person to progress, this is it. And it's not just some side feature. Co-op is literally baked into the entire game. You can't play this solo, and honestly, that's what makes it awesome. So, you're basically playing as these two guys, Leo and Vincent, who are trying to break out of prison. But it's not just a prison break game. It's so much more. You get to know these two characters, their stories, and how their lives are intertwined. What's cool is that both players control one of them, and each player has their own unique perspective and role in the story. It feels like you're part of a movie, where every scene is intense and meaningful. The way the split screen works is genius. Even though you're doing different things sometimes, like one person might be sneaking around while the other is in a fistfight, it all flows together. And you have these moments where you've got to coordinate with your partner, timing a move or making a plan to escape or fight. And when you pull it off, it feels so satisfying. You really need to communicate and work together, which makes it such a fun experience if you're playing with a friend. One of the best parts? The variety. You're not just breaking out of prison and that's it. No way. There are car chases, stealth sections, emotional moments, and even a few mini-games that you wouldn't expect. What I love is how the story keeps building. It's not just about escaping. It's about the relationship between Leo and Vincent. Alan Wake 2. If you played the first game, you probably already know how trippy things can get, but this sequel, it cranks up that eerie, psychological horror vibe to a whole new level. It's like being stuck in a thriller novel that keeps messing with your head. And I mean that in the best possible way. So, right off the bat, the atmosphere in this game is incredible. Every location feels drenched in mystery and dread. Whether you're walking through dark forests, creepy small towns, or abandoned buildings, there's this constant tension in the air, like something's always lurking just out of sight. It's not just about jump scares, though. It's that slow, creeping sense of unease that really gets under your skin. The game does such a good job of making you feel like you're never truly safe. The story? Man, it's deep. It's a blend of supernatural horror, psychological thriller, and just straight-up weirdness. You're dealing with Alan's mind unraveling, and reality itself starts to bend and twist around you. There are moments where you're not sure what's real, what's in his head, or what's being written into existence. It's this constant mind game that keeps you hooked. And what I love is how the game doesn't spoon-feed you answers. You're piecing together this puzzle, and it feels so satisfying when things click, or get even weirder. Combat is another high point. The whole flashlight and gun mechanic from the first game is back, but it's more refined this time around. You're constantly managing light and darkness. Uncharted 4. This is one of those games that grabs you from the very first moment. If you've played any of the previous Uncharted games, you know what to expect. Action, adventure, treasure hunts, and a lot of intense moments. But Uncharted 4 just hits differently. It feels like a perfect blend of everything we loved about the series, but with a more mature, reflective tone. Nathan Drake is back, and this time, he's facing his greatest challenge yet. What's really cool is that the game dives deeper into his personal life, showing a side of Nathan we don't usually see. He's older, more settled, and you can tell he's trying to move on from his treasure hunting days. But of course, things don't stay quiet for long. The game does a great job of building up that tension between wanting to leave the past behind and being pulled back in. It's something that feels relatable, even if we're not all globe-trotting adventurers. The visuals in this game are absolutely stunning. Whether you're scaling cliffs in Scotland or exploring ancient ruins in Madagascar, everything looks so incredibly detailed. Sometimes, I would just stop for a moment to take in the scenery, which is something I don't usually do in action games. The environments feel alive, and they draw you into the story in a way that makes it feel like you're watching a movie, but also in control of the action. Speaking of the action, Uncharted 4 nails the gameplay. The combat, the platforming, and even the puzzle solving all feel smooth and satisfying. Dead Space Remake, a game that completely revitalized a classic survival horror experience and honestly deserved a shot at Game of the Year. The original Dead Space was already a masterpiece, but the remake took it to another level, with modern graphics, tighter gameplay, and some amazing quality-of-life improvements. It was like stepping back into a nightmare, but with 4K visuals, and even more horrifying details. First off, the atmosphere in the Dead Space remake was next level. The USG Ishimura felt more alive, and dead, than ever. Every creak, every shadow, and every flickering light just added to that sense of dread. The developers did an incredible job preserving what made the original so terrifying, while also cranking up the immersion. They rebuilt the whole game from the ground up, and it showed in how polished the environments were. The lighting alone made certain sections feel way scarier than before, like you're always one step away from something terrible. But here's the thing. While the Dead Space remake was stunning and faithful to its source material, some people argued that it didn't do enough to push the genre forward, which is probably why it didn't take home the Game of the Year trophy. It was a fantastic remake, but it stayed close to the original's formula, which, for some, felt more like a tribute than a bold new experience. But here's the bottom line. The Dead Space remake did exactly what it set out to do, remind us why this franchise is one of the best in survival horror. The fact that it didn't win Game of the Year doesn't take away from the fact that it was one of the most polished and terrifying games of 2023. Crash Bandicoot 4. This game is a wild ride that combines classic Crash nostalgia with fresh, modern twists that feel like a love letter to longtime fans and a great entry point for newcomers. It's a bit of a crazy platformer, full of vibrant, chaotic worlds, tricky jumps, and the kind of fun challenge that makes you feel like a gaming hero when you finally nail it. Now, if you've played the old-school Crash games, you know that platforming here isn't a walk in the park, and Crash 4 definitely stays true to that. It's challenging, sometimes rage-inducing, but in the best possible way. There's this huge sense of satisfaction when you master those jumps, dodge obstacles, and make it to the end of a level. It's like the game is constantly daring you to just try it one more time. And hey, if you're someone who loves going for 100% completion, this game has you covered with tons of collectibles, hidden gems, and alternate paths. One of the coolest things about Crash 4 is the introduction of the Quantum Mask. These are special masks you can collect that each give you a unique ability, like slowing down time or flipping gravity. They really shake things up and make you think about platforming in a new way. Each mask adds a layer of strategy and keeps the gameplay fresh. So even if you're 10 or 20 levels in, there's always something new to discover. The masks really give Crash, and Coco if you prefer to play as her, a fun, super-powered feel without making the game any less challenging. Resident Evil Village. Another game that could have easily taken the Game of the Year title, but somehow didn't. And honestly, that's kind of surprising because when Village dropped, it felt like Capcom had found the perfect balance between horror, action, and just downright weirdness. One of the standout things about Resident Evil Village was how it mixed elements from both Resident Evil 7 and the more action-heavy style of Resident Evil 4. You had the creepy, atmospheric horror from 7, but then they threw in these larger-than-life characters and set pieces that screamed RE4, Lady Dimitrescu. Instantly iconic. She had the internet buzzing for months before the game even came out, and her castle felt like this throwback to the gothic vibes of older Resident Evil games. But what made Village special was how it didn't stick to just one type of horror. Each section of the game felt different. You had survival horror with limited resources in some areas, and then you'd go into full-on action mode with tons of firepower in others. And let's not forget the Beneviento house. That whole part was straight-up nightmare fuel. It felt like Capcom was experimenting with different horror subgenres, and for the most part, it totally worked. There was also the story. Resident Evil games have always been known for their over-the-top plots, and Village didn't disappoint in that regard. 2021 was a tough year for competition. It Takes Two ended up winning Game of the Year, and while it's a great game, it's a totally different vibe. Diablo 4. It's all about the thrill of combat and the promise of loot. Whether you're summoning dark magic, charging into battle as a tanky powerhouse, or raining arrows from a distance, every choice feels powerful and satisfying. But here's the kicker. This isn't just a game where you hack through enemies mindlessly. Combat in Diablo 4 feels strategic. It's about reading the battlefield, knowing when to go all in and when to pull back, and chaining together abilities in ways that make you feel unstoppable. Oh, and the enemies? They don't go easy on you. They're relentless, varied, and sometimes downright terrifying, forcing you to stay sharp and constantly adapt. Now, let's talk about the loot, because honestly, what's Diablo without loot, right? It's everywhere, and every piece you pick up feels like a mini jackpot. It's not just about shiny gear. It's about finding the perfect combination that makes your build truly click. Maybe it's a weapon that boosts your crits, or a piece of armor that lets you shrug off hits like a pro. The excitement of checking your inventory after every fight never gets old. Exploration in Diablo 4 is another highlight. The world is massive, and it feels alive in a way that keeps you curious. You're not just moving from one dungeon to the next. You're uncovering secrets, stumbling upon events, and discovering challenges that are as rewarding as they are unpredictable. It's a world that begs you to get lost in it, and there's always something waiting to be found. Mad Max. So, I recently had the chance to spend some time with Mad Max, and let me tell you, it's an experience that truly stands out. The game captures the raw, gritty essence of the Mad Max universe so well that it feels like you're right in the heart of that post-apocalyptic wasteland. One of the first things that hit me was the attention to detail in the environment. The desolate landscapes and towering sandstorms are crafted with such precision that they almost feel alive. It's like every corner of the world has a story to tell, and exploring it becomes an adventure in itself. Upgrading and customizing your car, the magnum opus, is an absolute blast. There's something incredibly satisfying about tearing through enemies with a fully upgraded, heavily armed vehicle. And the thrill of high-speed chases and explosive battles really keeps you on the edge of your seat. The narrative is another strong point. Max's journey, filled with intense personal struggles and high-stakes encounters, is engaging from start to finish. It's not just about surviving, it's about finding purpose in a world that's gone mad. The characters you meet along the way, each with their own quirks and backstories, add depth to the story. What's more, the game does a great job of balancing action with exploration. There's always something to discover, whether it's hidden loot, side quests, or just interesting details in the environment. It encourages you to take your time and really soak in the world around you. The combat mechanics are solid. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. This game is just pure fun. I thought Insomniac nailed it with the first game, but playing as Miles? It's like they cranked up the cool factor. From the moment you start swinging through the city, you feel that difference in Miles' style compared to Peter. He'd got that younger, more energetic vibe, and the way he moves those little spins and tricks mid-swing just makes it so satisfying to swing around New York. The story got so much heart. You can really feel the weight on Miles' shoulders, trying to live up to Peter's legacy, while figuring out what kind of Spider-Man he wants to be. He's got this personal connection to Harlem, too. And that adds a really nice, grounded layer to everything. It's not just about saving the city. It's about protecting his community, his friends, his family. I felt way more connected to his journey because of that. Plus, the combat is so slick. Those venom powers, absolute game changers. It never got old to just zap a group of enemies with a venom punch and watch them go flying. And combining that with his stealth abilities made for some really fun, creative fights. I'd go from sneaking around, taking out enemies one by one, to just leaping into the fray and unleashing chaos with his electricity. The combat just flows so well, and it's super satisfying to pull off those combos. Even though it's a shorter game compared to the first one, I honestly didn't mind. It felt like the perfect length for Miles' story, and I loved every second of it. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. This game is like a massive playground of imagination. I'll start by saying that if you're a fan of eye-popping visuals, crazy weapons, and charming characters, this is a must-play. Right from the start, you're thrown into this super vibrant, animated world. And when I say vibrant, I mean vibrant. The visuals here are insane. It's honestly like playing through a Pixar movie. The combat is chef's kiss. You have this insane arsenal of weapons, and each one is wilder than the last. I mean, only Ratchet and Clank could come up with weapons like a gun that turns enemies into plants. That's right, you can go full botanist on some evil aliens. There's this fun balance where you have to keep switching weapons, and because they're all so unique, combat never feels repetitive. Plus, upgrading them is addicting. You're always excited to see what ridiculous upgrade you'll unlock next. The game somehow keeps you on your toes, thinking, okay, what can I do next to make this even crazier? And Let's talk rifts for a second, because they're just so clever. You've got these dimensional portals that let you zip around the battlefield or enter totally new areas in seconds. It's like a whole new way of moving and exploring, and it makes the game feel like nothing else out there. Plus, there's this thrill in zipping through dimensions without a single loading screen. It's a mechanic that's so fresh, it almost feels like you're playing an action movie, where every second keeps you glued to the screen. Rift Apart is perfect for players of all ages. Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2. This game takes everything you might expect from a grounded medieval experience and deepens it into something uniquely authentic and immersive. It's not about fantasy or larger-than-life legends. It's about the grit, struggle, and everyday decisions that define life in a time where survival often hinged on skill, wit, and understanding the world around you. The game focuses on realism in a way that feels deliberate and unapologetic. Combat isn't about swinging wildly or relying on flashy moves. It's technical, calculated, and it demands a level of precision that reflects the era it's portraying. Every strike, block, or dodge feels like a decision, a moment where patience and preparation matter as much as raw skill. Weapons and armor don't just look accurate, they function as part of a system that rewards study and strategy over brute force. Villages and towns aren't just backdrops. They feel alive with routines, struggles, and histories that you can choose to engage with or observe from the sidelines. Every location feels purposeful, every interaction meaningful in shaping your path. The survival elements remain a cornerstone of the experience. Keeping track of your health, hunger, and stamina is a constant reminder that this isn't a world designed to cater to you. Your equipment needs maintenance, your skills need refining, and your choices carry consequences that ripple beyond the immediate moment. There's a tangible sense of effort in everything you do. Need for Speed Unbound, a high-octane ride that throws you right into the heart of street racing with an unmistakable attitude. The focus is all about the thrill of the chase, the rush of the win, and the risk you're willing to take to make a name for yourself in a city that never stops moving. The gameplay is a perfect mix of adrenaline-pumping races, high-stakes police chases, and strategic planning. It's not just about crossing the finish line first, it's about how you get there. Do you take the riskier shortcuts, or do you play it safe and stick to the main road? Every race feels like a gamble, and the rewards always feel worth it. Winning is great, but outsmarting cops in a high-speed pursuit? That's a different kind of rush. Customization is where Unbound really shines. This game gives you the tools to create a car that's truly yours. It's not just about slapping on a coat of paint and calling it a day. You can tweak, upgrade, and style your ride to match your vibe. Whether you're going for sleek and stealthy or loud and flashy, the options feel endless, and every adjustment makes your car feel like an extension of your personality. The races are intense and unpredictable, with a variety of events that keep things fresh. There's a sense of progression that feels earned as you climb the ranks, build your rep, and unlock better rides. The competition is fierce, but that's part of the fun. The game is a love letter to speed, style, and rebellion. Dying Light: The Following. This expansion takes everything you love about Dying Light and cranks it up with a fresh, open-world vibe that feels totally different yet equally intense. It's a brilliant twist on the core game, throwing you into a sprawling countryside where the rules of survival take on a whole new dynamic. Gone are the tight, urban spaces of Heron. And in their place, you get wide-open fields, winding dirt roads, and eerie farmlands where danger feels like it could come from anywhere. The introduction of a customizable buggy is an absolute game-changer. This isn't just a vehicle to get you from point A to point B. It's your lifeline in the countryside. Outrunning hordes of infected or plowing through them with your buggy's reinforced frame never gets old. The upgrade system for the buggy is incredibly satisfying, letting you equip things like flamethrowers, UV lights, and other tools of destruction. It adds a whole new layer to gameplay, making your vehicle feel like an extension of your survival toolkit. Exploration in the following feels different from the base game, thanks to the vast, open environment. You're encouraged to venture off the beaten path, and the world rewards your curiosity with hidden secrets, abandoned buildings, and challenges that keep you on edge. It's not just about scavenging for supplies. It's about adapting to this new environment and figuring out how to use its openness to your advantage. The countryside may look serene from a distance, but it's anything but safe. Combat remains as visceral and thrilling as ever. The Surge 2. I feel like it doesn't get enough credit, but I had such a good time with it. If you're into that whole Souls-like experience, but with a sci-fi twist, this game is exactly what you need. It takes that punishing, tactical combat formula and throws it into this futuristic, dystopian world, which is a super cool setting for this kind of gameplay. The thing that really hooked me was the combat. It's brutal, but in the best way. You're not just hacking and slashing mindlessly. You actually have to target specific limbs, which adds a whole new layer of strategy. I loved figuring out which part of an enemy I wanted to focus on. Do I go for the unarmored areas for an easy kill, or do I try to chop off a limb to get some sweet gear? Every fight felt like a puzzle, and I never got tired of that. Jericho City has this gritty industrial feel to it. The world building is solid. There's this mix of high-tech and complete chaos, and as you explore, you find out more about what went wrong in this messed-up future. The city itself is pretty open, with tons of shortcuts and hidden paths, which made exploring feel rewarding. Plus, the verticality of the levels was cool. You're not just walking through corridors. You're jumping, climbing, and finding secret areas that connect back in smart ways. It had that same feeling as Dark Souls, in how the world loops back on itself. The story is pretty interesting too. You're kind of dropped into this mess without much context, and as you play, you slowly piece together what happened in Jericho City. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. It takes everything Call of Duty is known for, fast-paced combat, intense firefights, and cranks it up to the max. This game isn't just about quick reflexes. It's about living out those high-stakes, cinematic moments that you'd normally only see in movies. Modern Warfare 2 is probably one of the most memorable campaigns in the whole Call of Duty series. What I love about the campaign is how well it balances action with quieter, suspenseful moments. It's not just non-stop explosions and chaos, though there's plenty of that. There are also these more thoughtful moments, where you have to rely on stealth, tactics, or just careful observation. It's a cool change of pace, and it makes those big, explosive moments hit even harder. Plus, the story is packed with memorable characters. You'll see some familiar faces like Soap and Captain Price, and the chemistry between them is fantastic. It's like being in an action movie, where every character has their own vibe, and you end up feeling genuinely invested in what happens to them. This campaign is really clever about mixing things up, so you're never doing the same thing twice. There's a little bit of everything. Stealth missions, full-blown shootouts, and even some sequences that almost feel like puzzles, where you have to think about how to use the environment to your advantage. Every mission has its own personality, and each one is designed to keep you engaged and constantly adapting to new situations. It's the kind of game where you never know what's coming next. GREEDFALL. It's this cool mix of fantasy and colonialism. I feel like it flew under the radar for a lot of people, but once you dive in, it's hard to stop. You know that feeling when a game has such a rich world, and you're like, why didn't I hear more about this? That's GREEDFALL for me. The first thing that really struck me was the setting. It's got this new world exploration feel, but instead of America or something, you've got this mysterious island called Tir-Fradee, filled with monsters and these indigenous tribes who have their own deep culture. Honestly, I think the world building is one of the game's strongest points. Like, there's this constant sense of discovery, and every place feels like it's hiding a secret or two. And the story. It's a classic RPG in the sense that your choices really shape the narrative. I found myself agonizing over some of the decisions, like, do I side with the natives or the colonial factions? Do I negotiate or fight? It really makes you think about the consequences, which I appreciate. It's not just black and white morality either. It's all these shades of gray. I think that's why it kept me hooked. It's a game that rewards you for paying attention to details and thinking about your choices. The companions are super well done too. I love how they've got their own backstories and personal quests, and the interactions with them feel meaningful. I actually cared about what happened to them, which doesn't always happen in RPGs, So yeah, if you're into RPGs with a bit of a twist, GREEDFALL is definitely worth checking out. Horizon Zero Dawn. You ever play a game that completely pulls you into its world and makes you forget time exists? From the very start, it hit me with its vast open world and beautiful landscapes. It's like stepping into a future where nature and machines are in this strange yet fascinating balance. The contrast of lush forests, snowy mountains, and decaying remnants of the old world just blew me away. I'd find myself stopping, not to complete a mission, but just to take in the view. What really pulled me in was Aloy, the main character. She's strong, independent, and driven, but still relatable. Her journey to uncover the truth about her past kept me hooked, and I felt a connection with her that not many games manage to achieve. Every interaction, every choice made me feel like I was walking her path, not just controlling her through a screen. The machines in Horizon are some of the most unique enemies I've ever encountered. They're massive, unpredictable, and have this alien feel to them, yet they belong perfectly in this world. Each machine required a different approach, forcing me to think and adapt. It never felt repetitive. Instead, it kept things fresh, especially when you take down something huge like a Thunderjaw. I remember the first time I did, and it felt like a massive victory. The combat made me feel like a hunter, not just a fighter, and that added a layer of depth I really appreciated. The story also has a lot going for it. There's mystery, there's emotion, and there's this haunting sense of loss throughout the game. Batman Arkham Knight. If you're into Batman even a little bit, this one really delivers. It's the final entry in the Arkham series, so there's a lot riding on it. And let me tell you, it wraps things up in the most satisfying way. First off, the gameplay. You're not just playing as Batman, you're feeling like Batman. The fluid combat, the way you can string together attacks, counters, gadgets. It's also smooth. Honestly, once you get the hang of it, you feel like a superhero, effortlessly taking down waves of thugs. It's like the perfect balance of tactical and badass. And then there's Gotham City. I mean, this is the Gotham I've always imagined. The atmosphere is spot on. Rain pouring down, neon lights reflecting off the streets, all with that dark, brooding vibe. It's eerie, but alive, if that makes sense. The city feels like it's its own character. Plus, the freedom to glide through the skyline or hop in the Batmobile just makes you feel like you own the place. Speaking of the Batmobile, I know people have mixed feelings about it, but come on, it's the freaking Batmobile. The controls can be a bit clunky at first, but once you get used to it, it's pretty fun blasting through the streets or shifting into battle mode. It adds a new dimension to the game, especially with those tank battles, even though they can get repetitive after a while. The story is where Arkham Knight really shines for me. Without spoiling too much, it's got everything. A psychological thriller, action-packed moments, and that emotional depth you wouldn't expect from a superhero game. Resident Evil 7. One of the coolest things about the game is how immersive it feels. They went with a first-person perspective, which, let me tell you, makes everything so much scarier. It's like you're in the middle of a horror movie, and you're the main character. And they nailed that gritty, creepy vibe. The sound design is just incredible, with creaky floors, distant footsteps, and other little sounds that keep you on edge. It really pulls you into the experience. You're exploring this creepy, run-down mansion, and right away, you can feel the game practically daring you to go deeper. And trust me, every corner you turn is filled with suspense. It's got that classic, what's around the next corner feel, where you're bracing yourself for something terrifying. I found myself holding my breath more than a few times. Combat-wise, it's got that classic Resident Evil survival feel. You're not overloaded with ammo, so every bullet counts, and you have to make careful decisions. It's a nice balance of horror and action, where you're fighting to survive, but still constantly feeling vulnerable. And the enemies? Let's just say they're some of the creepiest in the series. The puzzles are a fun throwback, too. They're clever, without being overwhelming, and they add that classic Resident Evil touch to the game. You're searching for keys, unlocking doors, and solving riddles, which all just adds to the sense of discovery and dread. And honestly, the Baker family. They are some of the most memorable characters in horror gaming. Period. Each encounter with them is just nerve-wracking, and you never know what they'll do next. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. If you played Final Fantasy VII Remake, you're already familiar with the epic world and characters, but Rebirth just takes everything up a notch. Midgar was this dark, gritty industrial setting in Remake, but Rebirth opens things up. You get to see more of Gaia, explore lush forests, massive plains, and mysterious ruins that feel like they're hiding 1,000 secrets. And then, there's the combat. Oh boy, if you thought the battles in Remake were good, Rebirth steps it up. It's still that real-time, action-packed combat system, but everything feels smoother and more refined. Switching between characters mid-battle is seamless, and they each bring something totally unique to the table. Cloud's powerful sword slashes, Tifa's quick martial arts, Barrett's massive gun arm. Everyone has a role, and you get to experiment with strategies that make every encounter exciting. And the materia system is back, so you're constantly tweaking your setups, figuring out the best combos for each fight. Oh, and the bosses? Unreal. Square Enix did not hold back. Each boss feels like its own mini-movie, with incredible animations, massive attacks, and a level of intensity that keeps you on the edge of your seat. And it's not just about the challenge. Each boss battle feels personal, like you're part of something epic. And the summons, summoning Ifrit, Shiva, or one of the other iconic Final Fantasy summons, just feels so satisfying. They show up, wreck shop, and leave you thinking, yep, that's why I love Final Fantasy. Assassin's Creed Unity. I know it got some heat when it first came out, but these days it's actually kind of a hidden gem. Paris during the French Revolution is just incredible. The city feels so alive with all the chaos of that time period. People rioting in the streets, vendors yelling, revolutionaries everywhere. You really feel like you're in the middle of it all. What I love most about Unity is the detail in the city. The way they've recreated Notre Dame and all the landmarks is just breathtaking. I mean, it's Paris. Who wouldn't want to explore every nook and cranny? Arno, the main character, gives off that classic Assassin's Creed vibe, but he's a bit more relatable. He's got this personal revenge story going on, which feels pretty typical for AC, but with the revolution happening around him, it adds a lot more tension. And the whole romance thing with Elise, I thought it was a nice touch, gave the story more depth. And let's talk parkour. The parkour in Unity is easily the best in the series. It just feels so smooth. Running through the narrow streets, climbing up buildings, it's like you can feel every jump and movement. Escaping guards or just free running across rooftops never gets old. The customization is a major highlight too. You can kit Arno out with different outfits, weapons, and abilities. Whether you want to go full stealth or just dive into combat, it's totally up to you. The freedom to shape how you play is awesome. Oh, and the co-op missions. I had so much fun with those. Running heists with friends, trying to coordinate attacks. It's pure chaos in the best way. Outlast 2. The game is a wild, terrifying ride from start to finish. It takes the creepy factor and dials it up so high you're constantly on edge. If you thought the first Outlast was scary, this one's here to remind you it can always get worse. First off, Outlast 2 does something amazing with its setting. You're dropped into this isolated backwoods area that feels like it's completely detached from the rest of the world. The story has you playing as Blake Langerman, a cameraman looking for answers about a mysterious murder, and, of course, you're not exactly welcomed with open arms. One thing I really love about Outlast 2 is how it forces you to use your camera to survive. You're relying on it for night vision in pitch black areas. But here's the kicker. The battery drains so fast. There's this constant panic about running out of juice. And when you hear something moving in the darkness, that dread just skyrockets. It's a beautiful kind of torture. Honestly, the camera itself feels like a character because you're always thinking about it, babying it, just hoping the battery lasts through the next nightmare. And when the camera dies in a dark place, pure terror. But it's not just about being scared. Outlast 2 does such a great job at making you feel helpless. There's no fighting back, no weapons, no hero moment where you suddenly become this badass. Nope, it's all about running, hiding, and surviving. You have to pick your hiding spots carefully, crouch through cornfields, dive under beds, and hope nobody finds you. Every noise feels like a threat. Mafia 2. This game hits differently. It's got this classic, almost cinematic feel to it, like you're stepping into an old mobster movie. From the moment it starts, you're drawn into this gritty 1940s and 50s world where the cars are big, the suits are sharp, and everything's just dripping with atmosphere. The setting of Empire Bay feels alive, like you can almost smell the exhaust from the cars and hear the hum of jazz coming out of a diner as you pass by. But what really gets me about Mafia 2 is the story. You're following Vito Scaletta, this guy who's just trying to make a life for himself after returning home from World War II. And you feel for the guy. He's not some untouchable, over-the-top hero. He's just a regular dude who gets sucked into this whole criminal underworld. And it's not even glamorous. Mafia 2 makes it pretty clear that this life comes with heavy consequences. The missions are top-notch too. 1 minute you're robbing a jewelry store. The next you're in this intense shootout, ducking behind cars and trading gunfire. It's got this old-school classic gangster vibe. One thing I love is how Mafia 2 doesn't overdo the open-world stuff. It's not like you're getting sidetracked with a million random activities. The game keeps its focus tight on the story, which I appreciate. It feels like every mission matters, and you're always pushing forward to see what happens next. Even though it's been years since it came out, Mafia 2 still holds up. Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. A game that feels like a love letter to the roots of the series while bringing something fresh and bold to the table. Movement feels like a dance, fluid, fast-paced, and incredibly rewarding when you string it all together. Sargon isn't just your run-of-the-mill protagonist. He's equipped with an arsenal of moves that make traversal and combat a treat. Whether you're wall running, dodging traps, or leaping across massive gaps, there's a rhythm to it that feels so satisfying. And then there's the combat. Let me tell you, it's not just about hacking and slashing your way through enemies. Every encounter demands strategy. You'll have to master dodges, parries, and combos to succeed. Enemies aren't pushovers. They're smart, they're tough, and they'll make you think on your feet. But that's part of the fun, right? When you finally take down a tricky foe after figuring out their patterns, it's such a rush. One thing that stands out about The Lost Crown is how it balances exploration and combat. The world is layered with secrets and challenges that encourage you to look beyond the obvious. It's not just about moving from point A to point B. It's about figuring out how to get there, what's hidden along the way, and how to overcome obstacles that aren't always straightforward. The game constantly rewards curiosity, and every time you uncover something new, it feels like a win. Speaking of obstacles, the puzzles in this game are no joke. They're clever, varied, and so satisfying to solve. Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain. It's one of those experiences that really makes you feel like you're in control of a tactical open-world espionage operation. From the moment you start as Big Boss, or Venom Snake, if you want to get technical, you know you're in for something special. The way the game blends stealth, action, and freedom of choice is just next level. Let's start with the open world. Unlike previous Metal Gear games, which were more linear, The Phantom Pain drops you into these massive living environments. You've got Afghanistan's rocky, mountainous terrain, and the jungles of Africa, each filled with enemy bases, patrols, and wild animals. The thing is, the world isn't just a backdrop. It reacts to how you play. You can approach missions any way you want, whether it's going in guns blazing or sneaking in without anyone ever knowing you were there. And the best part? If you get caught, the game doesn't punish you too harshly. You can adapt, think on your feet, and still pull off the mission. That freedom keeps the tension high and the experience fresh every time. The stealth mechanics, they're just so well done. You've got all these tools at your disposal. Decoys, tranquilizer guns, night vision goggles, and you can customize your loadout for every mission. One of my favorite things to do is use the cardboard box, classic Metal Gear, to sneak around or surprise enemies. It's so ridiculous, but somehow always works. And Mother Base is such a cool feature, you're constantly building it up. Max Payne 3. One of the things that hit me right away was how smooth the gameplay is. The gunplay is so satisfying. That bullet time mechanic is still here, and it's just as awesome as ever. Nothing beats diving through the air in slow motion, watching bullets fly by, while you take down a group of bad guys in a ridiculously cinematic way. I've got to say, Rockstar really nailed the action sequences. You feel like you're playing through an action movie, especially with how they blend the cutscenes into the gameplay seamlessly. It keeps you hooked the entire time. The game does a great job of blending the old and new. It's still got that noir vibe in the narrative and Max's inner monologues, but with a fresh twist. And while it's different from the first two games, it feels like a natural progression for Max as a character. He's still trying to run from his past, but no matter how far he goes or how many bullets he fires, he can't escape it. And honestly, he's pretty much at rock bottom when the game starts. You can really feel the weight of everything that's happened to him. I think one of the things that surprised me was how tough it can be. It's not an easy game. You really need to think about how you approach each situation. Especially when you're low on ammo or painkillers, it makes every decision count, and every time you survive a brutal firefight, you feel like you earned it. So yeah, if you love intense action, a deep emotional story, and a character who's as flawed as they come, Max Payne 3 is absolutely worth your time. It's not just a game, it's an experience. Red Dead Redemption 2, a game that absolutely dominated conversations when it came out, but somehow didn't win Game of the Year. And I get it, God of War was a beast in 2018, but let's be honest, Red Dead Redemption 2 was something else. This was a game that didn't just tell a story, it lived and breathed one. The world Rockstar created in Red Dead Redemption 2 was so immersive, it felt like the Old West was right there in front of you. And the detail? Insane. You could spend hours just wandering around, hunting, fishing, getting into random encounters. And every part of it felt like it was happening in real time. Rockstar nailed the atmosphere, from the dynamic weather to how towns felt alive. Even your horse had personality. People get so attached to their horses like it's a real companion. Now, the story is where the game really shines. Arthur Morgan? Easily one of the most complex, well-written characters in gaming. His whole journey of redemption, loyalty, and questioning his place in the gang gave players an emotional roller coaster. The game nailed that perfect blend of realism and fun. The way the world reacts to your choices, whether you're being honorable or wreaking havoc, makes every playthrough feel personal and unique. In the end, Red Dead Redemption 2 deserved all the praise and then some. It was more than just a game. It was an experience. The fact that it didn't win Game of the Year is still something people talk about, because it left such a lasting impact. Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. If you're familiar with the Yakuza series, you already know you're in for something big, bold, and just a little over the top. This game picks up with our guy, Ichiban Kasuga, who's back for another round of absolute chaos, heartwarming moments, and more twists than you can count. And let me tell you, if you're ready for a journey that's equal parts action, drama, and pure hilarity, this one's going to hit the spot. What makes Infinite Wealth stand out is how it blends a serious story with some of the funniest, most bizarre side activities you'll ever see. 1 minute, you're dealing with intense, emotional scenes. The next, you're wrapped up in a totally ridiculous minigame, and you're laughing because it's so outrageous. It's like they managed to throw in every wild idea they could think of, and somehow it all works. And with Ichiban leading the way, every moment feels fresh and unpredictable. Now, the turn-based combat, it's back. And better than ever. The strategy side of things adds this fun layer to every battle, and it's packed with quirky moves that only a game like a Dragon could pull off. And if you've played the previous games, you'll notice the combat's even more refined here. It's still got that signature mix of outlandish attacks and strategic depth, which makes every fight feel epic and hilarious at the same time. But beyond the action, it's really about the characters. Ichiban is one of those protagonists who's impossible not to root for. He's got this mix of loyalty, optimism, and pure heart that makes him stand out. Sniper Elite 4. It's set in World War II Italy, and let me tell you, it's way more than just a standard shooter. This game actually has you thinking, planning, and sneaking around, which makes it so much more engaging than just running and gunning. It's a nice change from the darker, grittier locations. There's this real sense of place, like you're actually on these missions behind enemy lines. You can even explore different routes and vantage points, so every mission feels open-ended. It's not a game that tells you, go here, do this. You have the freedom to get creative with your approach. Now, the big star of Sniper Elite 4 has to be the sniping itself. I mean, there's a reason Sniper is in the title. The sniping mechanics here are awesome. The game takes everything into account, distance, wind, even gravity, so every shot feels earned. And then there's that iconic X-ray cam. When you land a perfect shot, the camera follows the bullet in slow motion, and you get this X-ray view of it ripping through your target. It's kinda gruesome, but also so ridiculously satisfying. You know they nailed the shot mechanics when you can feel the weight of each shot. It's like a mini celebration every time you get it just right. But Sniper Elite 4 isn't just about staying a mile away from enemies and picking them off one by one. It's a full-on stealth experience. You have to be smart about where you go, how you hide, and how you move around. You can use the environment to mask your shots, like firing when a plane goes overhead, or when a generator is making noise. It makes you feel like a real sniper. Lords of the Fallen. Now here's a game that has an interesting story, but not in the way you'd expect. Because I'm talking about the story of how the game itself has been received. Lords of the Fallen is one of those games that came out swinging with big ideas, tried some bold moves, and got, well, a lot of hate for it. And honestly, most of it feels a bit unfair. This game came out in the shadow of Dark Souls, and, I mean, it's tough to go toe-to-toe with that. People immediately compared it to From Software's epic series, and, fair enough, Lords of the Fallen definitely wears its inspiration on its sleeve. It's got that dark fantasy look, tough-as-nails combat, and a focus on dodging, blocking, and timing your attacks. But here's the thing. Just because it shares a genre doesn't mean it's trying to be a Dark Souls clone. And this is where I think a lot of players missed the point. Where Lords of the Fallen shines is in its own take on the action RPG formula. It doesn't try to be as brutally difficult as Dark Souls. Instead, it aims for more accessibility, which is honestly a great thing. It makes this style of game way more approachable for players who might be new to the genre or just don't have the time to get good through dozens of hours of trial and error. Lords of the Fallen balances challenge with a little more leniency, which is refreshing. The combat itself is actually really satisfying. It's chunky and there's this real weight to every swing of your weapon. It doesn't have the razor-sharp precision of Dark Souls. The Evil Within, a game that brought some real old-school survival horror vibes, but didn't quite get the love it deserved. Honestly, this game flew under the radar for a lot of people, which is crazy because it was directed by Shinji Mikami, the guy behind Resident Evil 4. You'd think that would have guaranteed a Game of the Year contender, right? What made The Evil Within stand out was how it balanced psychological horror with intense, sometimes brutal action. The game wasn't just about jump scares, though it had plenty of those. It was about atmosphere, tension, and always keeping the player on edge. You never felt safe, which is what survival horror should be all about. And the world? Creepy, unsettling, filled with twisted, nightmarish creatures. It really felt like a descent into madness. But let's be real. The Evil Within wasn't for everyone, and that's probably why it didn't snag a Game of the Year. The difficulty was punishing at times, with limited ammo, tough enemies, and the kind of survival mechanics that could frustrate players who weren't prepared for that hardcore experience. It had this real old-school design that some players loved, but others found off-putting. People who were used to more action-focused horror games weren't always vibing with the slower, more methodical pace. The game was also pretty divisive when it came to its story. Some people thought the plot was all over the place, a little too cryptic and hard to follow, but here's the thing. If you were a fan of old-school survival horror, The Evil Within was a gem. Little Nightmares 2. From the moment you step into its eerie, twisted world, you know you're in for a wild ride. If you enjoyed the first game, this one takes everything that made Little Nightmares so great and cranks it up a notch. The atmosphere is even more disturbing, the puzzles are more challenging, and the story, while still cryptic, pulls you deeper into this unsettling nightmare realm. You play as Mono, a new character, but you're not alone. 6. The protagonist from the first game is there with you, and having that companion dynamic adds a new layer to the gameplay. It's cool how the game makes you rely on each other to get through the twisted environments. You'll need to work together to solve puzzles, escape enemies, and navigate the nightmarish world around you. It's not a co-op game, but that teamwork element feels fresh and gives you a stronger emotional connection to the characters. The world in Little Nightmares 2 is just as unsettling as you'd expect. It's full of grotesque, distorted creatures that'll send shivers down your spine. The design of the enemies is one of the game's strongest points. Each one is creepier than the last, and the way they move and interact with the environment keeps you on edge the whole time. There's a constant feeling of being hunted, which makes every encounter feel tense and nerve-wracking. What's really great about the game is how it balances those intense chase scenes with quieter, more atmospheric moments. You'll go from heart-pounding sequences where you're being chased by terrifying enemies. Evil West. If you're into games that let you feel like a total badass while fighting supernatural creatures, this one's for you. It's like Red Dead Redemption meets Van Helsing, but with way more punch. First off, the combat is brutal. You've got this mix of melee and ranged weapons that keeps things interesting the entire time. One moment, you're blasting vampires with a rifle, and the next, you're smashing them into pieces with an electrified gauntlet. The flow of switching between weapons and powers feels so natural. I loved how I never felt stuck using one method. The game just encourages you to get creative with the chaos. The story really surprised me too. I went in expecting just some fun, mindless action, but the narrative actually hooked me. You play as Jesse Rentier, this tough-as-nails cowboy working for a secret monster hunting institute, and the whole Wild West meets horror vibe is so well done. It's not Shakespeare, but it fits the tone perfectly. There's this balance of grit and humor in the dialogue that kept me engaged the whole way through. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's not just a throwaway plot either. I also love that they didn't overcomplicate things with RPG elements. There are upgrades, sure, but they don't slow down the action. You can upgrade your weapons and skills as you go, but it's straightforward and doesn't bog you down with too many choices. It's more about fine-tuning how you want to fight, which really lets you focus on the combat and the carnage. Guardians of the Galaxy. This one's interesting because it kind of had everything going for it, but for some reason, it didn't hit as big as people expected at launch. I mean, you've got one of the most beloved Marvel teams, a great developer, Eidos Montreal, and a focus on single-player storytelling, which is something a lot of people were craving, but when it dropped, it just didn't make the splash it should have. So, what happened? Well, for one, people were still feeling the aftershocks of Marvel's Avengers. That game didn't really land well with fans, and it made a lot of people skeptical about Guardians. Folks saw another Marvel game and thought, here we go again with another live service mess. Even though Guardians of the Galaxy is nothing like that. It's a totally single-player, story-driven experience with zero microtransactions or live service elements. But it got lumped in with Avengers, and that hurt its initial reception. Now let's talk about the controversial stuff. The characters. Some fans were thrown off because the game's versions of Star-Lord, Gamora, and the rest of the crew didn't look or sound like their MCU counterparts. If you're used to Chris Pratt as Star-Lord, or Zoe Saldana as Gamora, it might take you a second to adjust to these new interpretations, but once you do, you realize they're actually great. The writing is sharp, the dialogue is hilarious, and the chemistry between the Guardians is spot on. It feels like you're right there with them, and the banter between the team is one of the best parts of the game. The combat also got mixed reactions. Some people found it a little chaotic at first. NIER Automata, one of those games that didn't exactly explode onto the scene when it first launched, but ended up becoming a cult classic. If you've never played it, at first glance it might seem like just another action RPG. But this game much more than that. It's one of those titles that, once you dive in, completely pulls you in with its depth themes and that emotional roller coaster of a story. But here's the thing. When it first came out, not a lot of people were talking about it. Sure, it had fans, but it didn't immediately blow up like some big AAA game. Part of that might be because the original was kind of niche and never really became a mainstream hit. So it had this uphill battle where people weren't sure if it was worth checking out. The game is weird. And I say that in the best possible way. It doesn't hold your hand, it doesn't give you a typical RPG experience, and the story can get really out there. You've got androids questioning the meaning of life, robots acting like humans, existential dread, and more than a few mind-bending plot twists. For some players, it was a little too philosophical. It's not afraid to get deep and ask big questions. And that can be off-putting if you're just looking for a straightforward action game. Then there's the whole multiple endings thing. It doesn't just have a single ending, it has like 26 of them. Now, most of those are joke endings, but to get the full story, you actually have to play through the game multiple times, seeing it from different perspectives. Some people love that. It's one of the game's strengths, but others didn't really want to replay the same sections to uncover the whole narrative. Shadow of the Tomb Raider. For some reason, it didn't get the love it deserved when it first came out. I mean, Lara Croft is a gaming icon, and the rebooted trilogy had been going strong, but when Shadow of the Tomb Raider dropped, it kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people. But honestly, this game is way better than its reputation suggests. Well, a lot of it came down to timing. Shadow of the Tomb Raider launched during a crowded time, with some big AAA games releasing around the same period, so it got overshadowed. Plus, some critics said it didn't do enough to innovate from the previous two games. People expected something groundbreaking after Rise of the Tomb Raider, but instead, they got a game that felt more like an evolution than a revolution. But here's the thing, what's so bad about sticking to a formula that works? The story, for example, is actually pretty deep. And let's not forget the world building. Shadow of the Tomb Raider has some of the most beautiful environments in the entire series. From dense jungles to hidden tombs. The game is visually stunning. The tombs themselves are more complex and rewarding than before, with some really creative puzzles that feel satisfying to solve. If you love the exploration and puzzle-solving aspects of Tomb Raider, this game nails it. Combat also feels more refined. Sure, it's not the focus as much as it was in the earlier reboot games, but that actually works in the game's favor. Shadow of the Tomb Raider encourages stealth and strategy over pure action, which fits the tone of the game. Ghost Recon Wildlands. It's one of those games that kind of slipped under the radar for a lot of people, but honestly, it's so much fun once you get into it. I mean, the sheer scale of the open world is wild. Bolivia is your playground, and you can literally go anywhere. I I remember the first time I jumped in a helicopter and just flew over this huge mountain range, seeing the sprawling landscape below. It's kind of breathtaking, even for an older game. The thing that really stands out, though, is how flexible the gameplay is. You've got this whole squad with you, and you can approach missions in so many different ways. If you're feeling tactical, you can scout out an area with your drone, mark enemies, and silently pick them off one by one. Or you can just go in guns blazing and let the chaos unfold. And I love that both options work. There's no one way to play it. And man, playing co-op with friends, that's where it gets really fun. There's nothing quite like coordinating an attack with your buddies, where everyone's got their role. One person's sniping, another's on the ground sneaking in, and then you're calling in air support. It just makes you feel like a real squad. Of course, it doesn't always go according to plan, and when everything falls apart, it turns into this hilarious mess of trying to escape or salvage the mission. But that's part of the charm, right? I also appreciate how the game doesn't take itself too seriously. Sure, it's got this gritty cartel storyline, but the characters crack jokes, and there are these moments of levity that break up the intensity. The only downside? I guess some missions can get a bit repetitive if you're playing solo for too long. The Callisto Protocol. It's from Glenn Schofield, one of the co-creators of Dead Space, so if you know that series, you can expect a similar intensity here, with a unique twist that keeps things fresh. One of the things I love about this game is how it creates tension. It's not just jump scares, though there are a few really effective ones. It's that constant feeling of dread. You're almost always low on ammo and health, so every encounter with the twisted, mutated inmates of this prison feels like a struggle to survive. The combat is brutal and up close, forcing you to really get in there and make every swing count. It's not your typical action game where you can just spray bullets and move on. Here, you're scraping by with whatever resources you can find, and it adds so much to the immersion and intensity. The combat is visceral. There's this raw, almost primal feel to it. The melee system in particular is pretty unique for a horror game. You actually have to get in close to bash these creatures, and it's terrifying in the best way. You're not just standing back with a gun. You're practically fighting for your life in every encounter, which makes the experience that much more intense. What really stands out, though, is how the game creates this balance between horror and sci-fi mystery. Sure, you're dealing with terrifying creatures and survival, but there's also this big, intriguing story underneath it all. Why did everything go wrong on Callisto? What's causing these transformations? The game does a great job of feeding you bits and pieces of the narrative as you go. Control. I remember starting it and thinking, okay, this looks interesting, but it just keeps getting weirder in the best possible way. You play as Jesse Faden, who walks into this super secret government building called the Federal Bureau of Control, and from there, things get strange. The whole game is set inside this massive, brutalist-style building called the Oldest House, and it's full of supernatural events, shifting walls, floating people. You've got this crazy service weapon that shifts between different forms, like a pistol that can turn into a shotgun or a sniper rifle. And then there's the telekinesis. Throwing objects at enemies with your mind never gets old. I remember picking up desks, chunks of concrete, even explosive canisters, and just launching them at enemies. It's so satisfying. And as you level up, you get more abilities like levitating, creating shields, and even mind-controlling enemies. It makes every battle feel dynamic because you've got all these powers to mess around with. The game also nails the whole mind-bending thing. The environments constantly shift and change. There's this one part, the ashtray maze, that had me completely blown away. It's like this surreal, almost psychedelic level where the walls and floors are shifting, and you're just flying through it, blasting enemies, while this killer rock soundtrack plays. So yeah, Control is one of those games that feels totally unique. It's got this perfect mix of supernatural weirdness, awesome combat, and a mystery that keeps pulling you deeper. HELLBLADE: SENUA's Sacrifice. I can honestly say, it's unlike anything I've played before. Right from the beginning, it sets a tone that's dark, emotional, and deeply immersive. You can tell it's more than just an action-adventure game. There's a deeper story here, and it pulls you in with every step SENUA takes on her journey. The story is so emotional, especially as it deals with mental health in such a powerful way. The way they portray SENUA's psychosis, the voices in her head, it's also unsettling but fascinating at the same time. It's like you're constantly living inside her mind, and that really makes you connect with her. It's rare to see a game tackle such a heavy topic with so much respect and depth. And then there's the combat. It's intense, but it's not over the top. It feels personal. Like every fight is a struggle for survival. You're not just slashing through enemies for the sake of it. Each battle feels like it has weight, like SENUA's fighting for something bigger. And the way the game makes you feel isolated, with those stunning landscapes that somehow feel both beautiful and haunting, it just adds to the experience. The audio design really stood out to me too. Wearing headphones made a huge difference. The voices surround you, whispering in your ear, sometimes confusing you, sometimes guiding you. It's such a smart use of sound to mess with your mind, making you question what's real. Just like SENUA, I found myself genuinely tense during certain moments, not because of jump scares, but because of that constant feeling of unease. Portal 2, one of the smartest, funniest, and most satisfying games out there. I mean, if you've ever wondered what it's like to solve complex puzzles while being gently or not so gently insulted by an AI, this is the game to play. From the moment you wake up, you know you're in for a unique experience. You play as Chell, this silent character stuck in a strange, abandoned science facility, and your main tool is this incredible portal gun. With it, you can create 2 connected portals on certain surfaces, letting you move through them in ways that feel almost magical. The whole concept of thinking with portals is amazing because it forces you to look at puzzles in a totally different way. What I love about Portal 2 is how it gradually ramps up the challenge. At first, it's simple stuff, figuring out where to place portals to get from point A to point B. But then they throw in all these wild mechanics like tractor beams, light bridges, and these crazy gels that speed you up or make you bounce. It's like each level is teaching you to think bigger, get more creative, and really push the limits of what's possible with just portals. The best part, though, has to be the co-op mode. Portal 2 lets you team up with a friend, and it's an absolute blast. You play as 2 adorable robots, and the puzzles are designed around the idea of working together. It's hilarious, challenging, and such a great way to test your teamwork. If you're into smart puzzles, and a game that constantly surprises you, Portal 2 is an absolute must-play. Amnesia: The Bunker. We all know Amnesia is famous for its psychological horror, but this time, it's different, more intense, more claustrophobic. You're stuck in this grimy World War I bunker, and it's basically pitch black most of the time. Just that alone is enough to make you feel tense. I found myself constantly worrying about running out of light. I don't know about you, but for me, that's one of the worst feelings in a horror game, when you hear something but can't see it and your light is flickering. Yeah, no thanks. Speaking of the light, the whole mechanic with the hand crank flashlight is brilliant. It's one of those simple things that amps up the dread. You're cranking that thing as fast as you can, praying the batteries don't die while you hear something creeping up behind you. I legit felt my heart rate spike a few times. It adds this layer of vulnerability, but it also gives you just enough control to not feel totally helpless, just mostly helpless. The big difference in the bunker is how much freedom you have to explore. It's not as linear as the previous Amnesia games. You're given this bunker to explore at your own pace, which sounds nice, right? Except there's a monster roaming around that's hunting you the entire time. So, yeah, you're free to roam, but good luck trying to stay calm while something's lurking in the shadows. The bunker itself is like this living, breathing nightmare. It's got that eerie, abandoned vibe, but it's also full of details that make you feel like you're uncovering something dark. The atmosphere is thick with dread. Everything from the sound design to the way light barely reaches down those narrow corridors. Avowed. If you've ever wished to dive headfirst into a world where magic feels tangible, choices truly matter, and exploration is practically begging you to get lost in it, this game is exactly what you're looking for. Now, here's the thing about Avowed. It's set in the same universe as Obsidian's Pillars of Eternity series, but don't let that scare you if you've never touched those games before. You don't need prior knowledge to jump in and enjoy what Avowed has to offer. Think of it as a new doorway into this rich world, where you're given the freedom to shape your adventure the way you want. It's welcoming, accessible, and absolutely bursting with lore for those who want to dig deeper. One of the coolest parts of Avowed is how it handles magic and combat. This isn't just about flinging fireballs or swinging swords. You feel a genuine sense of connection to your arsenal. Whether you're crafting devastating spell combinations or making use of more traditional weaponry, the game makes every action feel purposeful. It's all about giving you tools to tackle challenges your way. You want to go in like a one-person army, prefer something sneakier or more methodical. That's on the table too. The game doesn't just hand you decisions. It throws you into situations that make you think. You're not just clicking dialogue options. You're shaping relationships, influencing factions, and, in many cases, questioning your own moral compass. It's like the game is daring you to leave your mark on its world. Exploration is another huge win here. BIOSHOCK Infinite. This game had a huge amount of hype before its release, and when it finally came out, some people loved it, and others felt it was a step down from the more atmospheric and horror-focused tone of the first two games in the series. One of the big reasons it got some backlash was that it moved away from the darker, more claustrophobic setting of Rapture to the bright, floating city of Columbia. Instead of lurking around creepy corridors, you're soaring through the sky on rails, fighting in these grand, open environments. That change in tone didn't sit well with some players who were hoping for the same intense, eerie vibes they got in the original BioShock. The combat also shifted to be a lot more fast-paced and action-heavy, which wasn't everyone's cup of tea. Some fans missed the slower, more strategic approach of the earlier games, and they felt like Infinite was a little too much like a standard first-person shooter. The introduction of Elizabeth as an AI companion, while praised by many for how well she was integrated into gameplay, also rubbed some players the wrong way, feeling like it made the game more linear or scripted. Yeah, it's different from the first BioShock, but that doesn't mean it's bad. In fact, it's bold for even daring to be so different. It tells a complex, layered story that's still talked about today, and while the gameplay might be more action-heavy, it's polished and engaging. So while BioShock Infinite has its detractors, it's absolutely worth playing. Mortal Kombat 1. You know how some fighting games make you feel like you're mashing buttons, hoping for the best? Not here. Mortal Kombat 1 manages to strike that perfect balance between approachable for newcomers and deep enough for the hardcore crowd. The accessibility options deserve a shout-out too. Fighting games can sometimes feel like an exclusive club, where only the most dedicated players thrive, but Mortal Kombat 1 welcomes everyone. Tutorials? Check. Training modes? Double check. And the inputs for moves are forgiving enough that even your friend who's never touched a controller before can still have fun, and maybe even land a killer fatality. The controls are responsive, the pacing is satisfying, and pulling off a special move feels ridiculously rewarding. And the fatalities? Without spoiling anything, of course. The creativity here is just off the charts. It's like the developers sat in a room and asked, how can we make players' jaws drop every single time? And then they delivered. It's gruesome, it's over the top, and somehow it's hilarious in that classic Mortal Kombat way. But what really keeps me coming back is the variety in gameplay. Sure, the main fights are the meat of the experience, but there's so much to explore beyond that. The game isn't just about smashing buttons in endless matches. It gives you reasons to keep playing, whether it's unlocking cool stuff or experimenting with different characters. Bottom line, jump in, throw some punches, and enjoy the chaos. Mortal Kombat 1 doesn't hold back. Tekken 8. Now, if you're worried about the gameplay, don't be. This is still the Tekken you know and love, fast-paced, technical, and ridiculously satisfying. But Tekken 8 doesn't just play it safe, it's added a few new tricks to keep things fresh. It's all about aggressive gameplay, rewarding you for staying on the offensive, and pulling off some truly flashy moves. It feels like the game is encouraging you to take risks and go for broke, and when you pull off a perfectly timed heat burster combo, chef's kiss. Speaking of combos, let's just take a moment to appreciate how good it feels to land one in Tekken 8. There's something so satisfying about stringing together a series of hits, juggling your opponent, and finishing with a cinematic blow. It's like painting a masterpiece, except your paintbrush is your fist, and the canvas is your opponent's face. What I've always loved about Tekken is how every character feels so unique, and Tekken 8 takes that to a whole new level. Whether you're into the brutal power of King's wrestling moves, the lightning-fast precision of Kazuya, or the wild acrobatics of characters like Ling Xiaoyu, there's a fighter here for everyone. And don't worry if you're new. The game does a great job of easing you into the mechanics, but let's be real. Learning the ropes is half the fun. The other half? That moment when you finally master a character and start pulling off ridiculous combos that make your friends yell, "How did you do that?" And the story mode? Buckle up, because Tekken 8 delivers the drama. Helldivers 2. Now, this game is a follow-up to the original Helldivers, which had a strong cult following. It's all about cooperative, top-down, tactical shooting, but with a pretty unique twist. It's brutally difficult. However, Helldivers 2 has gotten some hate for being too punishing, or for having gameplay mechanics that can feel overwhelming, especially for new players. One of the biggest complaints is how unforgiving it can be. Friendly fire is always on, which means you can accidentally or not so accidentally kill your teammates during missions. And believe me, this happens a lot. It's a game that forces you to be super careful, and not everyone is down for that level of intensity. The steep learning curve and lack of hand-holding also rubbed some players the wrong way, especially those who were expecting something more casual. Another thing that got some pushback was the game's structure. Missions can feel repetitive after a while, and if you're playing solo, the game is an entirely different experience, and not always in a good way. It's built around cooperative play, so going in alone can make it feel more frustrating than fun. But here's the thing. If you're into tactical shooters and have a squad to play with, Helldivers 2 is an absolute blast. The chaos that comes from trying to coordinate with your teammates while dodging enemy fire and calling in reinforcements makes for some seriously intense moments. The variety of weapons, gear, and strategies you can use makes each mission feel dynamic, and the constant threat of messing up keeps the tension high. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Now, this is a game that doesn't hold back. From the moment you start, it's full throttle, no apologies. The story picks up right after the first one, and let me tell you, they dive straight into the madness. You've got BJ Blazkowicz, still the ultimate Nazi killing machine, but now even more battle-worn and broken, both physically and mentally. And yet, he's still got that fire. He's out for blood, but there's this deeper emotional side to him in this game that really surprised me. The gunplay is pure chaos in the best way. The weapons are so satisfying, and when you dual-wield two massive guns, it's like you're a one-man army mowing down everything in your path. The combat is fast, brutal, and it just feels good. Every shot has impact. And the enemies don't just drop. They explode into chunks when you hit them right. It's gloriously over the top, and I loved every second of it. Oh, and let's talk about the villains. Frau Engel, she's terrifying. She's not just some generic evil figure. She's genuinely unsettling, with this twisted obsession and cruelty that makes her a perfect antagonist. You really want to take her down, and that's what drives you forward. The way the game builds tension between you and her is brilliant, and every time she shows up, you know things are about to get wild. The characters are fantastic. Whether it's old friends from the Resistance or new allies you meet along the way, everyone's got their own personality, and it makes you care about them. Some scenes had me laughing, others had me really thinking. Baldur's Gate 3. If you're into RPGs or Dungeons and Dragons, this is basically a dream come true. The thing is, it's not just the story. It's the choices you make, the characters you meet, the dice rolls that can completely change how a situation unfolds. Every playthrough feels different, and I love that about it. First off, let's talk about the freedom this game gives you. You can literally do anything. Want to sneak past enemies instead of fighting them? Go for it. Want to convince a dragon to let you pass with just a bit of clever dialogue? Roll those dice. Or if you're feeling chaotic, you can just, blow stuff up with magic and hope for the best. That freedom makes every encounter feel fresh, and it's not just about combat. Your decisions can have lasting consequences on the story, on your companions, and even on the world itself. The story itself is wild. You start off with this mind flayer parasite in your brain, which immediately sets the stakes super high. And as you try to find a cure, you uncover all these other crazy plots and factions vying for control. It's dark, it's epic, and the world is full of so many cool little stories and side quests that it's easy to get lost in it all. The best part? You can shape the story in so many different ways, whether you want to be a hero, a villain, or something in between. The game doesn't force you down one path. It really feels like your journey. It's got that perfect blend of story, character development, and strategic combat, all wrapped up in this beautiful, sprawling world. Stalker 2. So, you know how some games make you feel like you're surviving? Like, really surviving? That's Stalker 2 in a nutshell. The zone is the star of the show. It's haunting, it's dangerous, and it's unpredictable. What I love most is how it doesn't hold your hand. You're thrown into this place, and you just have to figure it out. It's like the game is saying, hey, good luck out there, buddy. And honestly, that's part of what makes it so satisfying. It's all about exploration, taking risks, and making decisions that can completely change your experience. If you've played the original Stalker games, you already know this isn't your typical shoot and loot affair. You're scavenging, crafting, and constantly managing your resources. And it feels real. Ammo isn't something you take for granted. Food and medical supplies, you'll cherish them like gold. And don't even get me started on the anomalies. These bizarre, deadly phenomena scattered across the zone add this layer of tension that keeps you on edge at all times. Every step you take feels like it matters. The NPCs you encounter in Stalker 2 are not just background noise. They feel like real people trying to survive, just like you. Some might help you, some might not. And figuring out who to trust is all part of the journey. If you love a good challenge, or if you just want to experience something truly unique, Stalker 2 needs to be on your radar. It's not just a sequel, it's a love letter to fans of the series and a bold step forward into a new generation of gaming. Dishonored 2. It's like stepping into a living painting where every corner has its own story. One of the things I really appreciated was how they expanded on the original game's mechanics. The new powers are incredibly fun to use. For instance, Emily's ability to manipulate time is a game changer. I found myself replaying levels just to experiment with different ways to use her powers. It's like the game gives you a playground for your creativity. Corvo's powers are just as thrilling as ever, but they've added a nice twist with his new abilities. The flexibility in gameplay is fantastic. Whether you prefer stealth or going in with all guns blazing, the game supports both playstyles seamlessly. It's amazing how each mission can be approached in so many different ways. I spent hours just replaying levels to see how different strategies panned out. The story itself, absolutely gripping. The dual perspectives of Emily and Corvo offer such a fresh take on the narrative. I loved seeing how their choices and actions impacted the world around them. It's impressive how the game manages to weave personal stories with broader political intrigue. Also, the character interactions were top-notch. It felt like the NPCs actually had a life of their own, reacting to your choices and changing their behavior accordingly. It made the world feel more dynamic and alive. I found myself genuinely invested in the characters and their fates. If I had to nitpick, there were a few bugs here and there, but nothing that really detracted from the overall experience. Borderlands 3. The combat in Borderlands 3 is just pure, unfiltered chaos in the best way possible. You've got guns that shoot other guns, grenades that create black holes, and even weapons that yell insults while you fire them. It's not just about how many guns there are, though there are a lot. It's how creative and ridiculous they are. Every time you pick up a new weapon, you never know if it's going to completely change how you play, or just make you laugh out loud. And let's not forget the movement. They've really amped it up in this game. You can slide, mantle, and just zoom around the battlefield like a maniac. It makes every encounter feel dynamic and keeps the adrenaline pumping. There's nothing quite like sliding into cover, tossing out your action skill, and watching as absolute mayhem unfolds around you. Now let's talk about the world. Or should I say worlds? This isn't just Pandora anymore. Nope. Borderlands 3 takes you to multiple planets, each with its own unique vibe. You've got lush jungles, neon-lit cities, and even deserts that feel alive with danger and opportunity. It's a visual feast, and the art style? Still that iconic comic book-inspired look, but sharper and more vibrant than ever. It's like someone took a Saturday morning cartoon, threw in some chaos, and cranked it up to HD. Now, I know some people think the story in Borderlands 3 might be a bit wild or over the top, but that's kind of the point. It's unapologetically zany, and for me, that's a big part of the charm. Halo Infinite. This game pulls you right into the heart of what makes Halo such a beloved franchise, while also taking bold steps to evolve the series in new and exciting ways. It's all about blending classic Halo action with modern gameplay elements, and it does so in a way that feels fresh, yet familiar. The gameplay is where this title shines brightest. The combat is fluid, responsive, and endlessly satisfying. Whether you're dual-wielding an arsenal of futuristic weapons or taking down enemies with precision strikes, the gunplay is top tier. The grapple shot, a new addition to the series, changes the way you approach every encounter. It's not just a tool, it's a game changer. You can zip across the battlefield, snag weapons from afar, or use it to close the gap for a devastating melee attack. It's one of those mechanics that feels natural right away, but opens up a ton of creative options as you get more comfortable with it. The open world design is a major shift for the series. and it's handled with care. Instead of guiding you down a set path, Halo Infinite gives you the freedom to explore. You'll find enemy outposts, hidden collectibles, and opportunities for some epic vehicle combat scattered across the map. The world feels alive, and every encounter is a chance to experiment with different tactics. Driving a Warthog with a squad of Marines, or taking the skies in a Banshee, feels just as thrilling as ever. One of the standout features is how dynamic the battles feel. Enemies adapt to your strategies. Vehicles explode in glorious fashion. Titanfall 2. If you haven't jumped into this game yet, you're in for a treat because it's one of those rare shooters that nails everything from movement to story. You're not just running and gunning here. Titanfall 2 turns you into a parkour expert, with wall running, double jumping, and slides that let you weave through the battlefield like a pro. The controls are smooth, and once you get the hang of it, it's hard to go back to other games. The map designs are built around this movement too, encouraging you to think creatively about how to get from point A to point B. There's something so satisfying about stringing together a perfect series of moves to outmaneuver enemies, and every match feels like you're pulling off action movie stunts. And then there are the Titans. If you ever wanted to pilot a giant mech, Titanfall 2 makes that dream come true. The game balances your time between playing as a pilot, the fast, agile soldier, and then calling down your Titan, which adds this completely new layer to the gameplay. Titans are powerful, heavy-hitting, and give you this awesome sense of being a walking tank. But it's not just a button mash fest. Every Titan has unique abilities and weapons, so there's actually a good bit of strategy involved. One thing that really stands out in Titanfall 2 is the campaign. Now, I know campaigns in first-person shooters can sometimes feel like a warm-up for multiplayer, but here it's a full experience on its own. It's well-paced, exciting, and even throws in some surprises that keep things fresh. Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Ubisoft had a pretty solid reputation with the previous game, Ghost Recon Wildlands, so expectations were high for this one. But when Breakpoint dropped, it was met with a ton of criticism. People were upset with everything, from the bugs and glitches to the live service elements and microtransactions. Some felt the game had drifted too far from what made the Ghost Recon series great, tactical, squad-based military action. A lot of the backlash was around the game's focus on looter-shooter mechanics. Fans of the series weren't too happy about the addition of gear scores and loot systems, which felt more like something out of the Division rather than a tactical military shooter. That shift towards a more RPG-like system was jarring for longtime fans, and many felt it took away from the realism and immersion they loved about the franchise. Another big complaint was the lack of AI teammates at launch, which had been a staple in past Ghost Recon games. Instead, you were forced to play solo or with real players in co-op, and that left some players feeling like the experience was incomplete. But here's the thing. Ubisoft listened to the feedback. Over time, they patched the game, added new features, and really worked to improve the overall experience. AI teammates were eventually brought back, and many of the issues with bugs and balance were addressed. The game today is a much better, more polished version than it was at launch. Despite the rough start, Breakpoint offers a lot for fans of tactical shooters. Monster Hunter World, a game that's all about epic hunts, incredible creatures, and just a whole lot of fun. If you've ever wanted to feel like the ultimate hunter, taking down massive, fantastical beasts with a giant sword, or hammer, or bow, or even a bagpipe, then this game is calling your name. And trust me, once you start, it's hard to put down. The combat in Monster Hunter World is intense, but in the best way possible. You've got so many weapons to choose from, each with its own feel and playstyle. There's something for everyone. Whether you want to get up close and personal with a giant sword, keep your distance with a bow, or support your friends with a hunting horn, it's all there. Each weapon has its own learning curve, but mastering one feels incredibly rewarding. And the game doesn't rush you. You can spend hours just getting comfortable with different weapons and finding out which one really clicks for you. The best part about hunting, though, is that it's not just a straightforward swing till it drops kind of deal. You've got to pay attention to the monster's movements, study its behavior, and figure out when it's vulnerable. Every hunt is like a puzzle, and it's up to you to figure out how to take down each monster. It's challenging, but never frustrating, and every victory feels earned. You'll find yourself thinking, okay, maybe just one more hunt, over and over again. The monsters themselves are really the stars here. Each one is so unique, with its own behaviors, attack patterns, and quirks. Middle-earth: Shadow of War. It got a bit of a rough start, but honestly, deserved way more love than it got. Now, when it dropped back in 2017, the game had a lot of expectations riding on it because Shadow of Mordor was such a hit. And Shadow of War did a lot of things right, but there's no denying it also stirred up some serious controversy, which didn't help its case at launch. First, let's get the big elephant in the room out of the way: the microtransactions. Yep, that's where a lot of the initial hate came from. It was a single-player game, but Warner Bros. Thought, hey, let's toss in loot boxes and microtransactions. Gamers were not having it. Understandably, no one wants to feel like they're being nickeled and dimed in a story-driven experience. What's wild, though, is that they eventually removed the microtransactions completely. But by then, the damage had already been done. A lot of people had already written it off. And that's a real shame because, beyond all the controversy, Shadow of War had so much going for it. First off, that Nemesis system, still genius. I mean, creating rivalries with orcs who remember you, plot against you, or come back from the dead for revenge. It's such a unique mechanic that really makes every playthrough different. The world felt alive, chaotic, and personal, in a way most open-world games dream of achieving. Then, there's the scale of the game. They took what worked in Shadow of Mordor and just made it bigger. More fortresses to conquer, more regions to explore, and even more dynamic relationships with your followers and enemies. Forza Horizon 5. Even if you're not a racing game person, trust me, you'll still find something to love here. It's like a love letter to cars, exploration, and just having a good time behind the wheel. Remember when you used to race toy cars around your living room, making up little adventures as you went? Forza Horizon 5 brings that same energy, but cranks it up to 11. It's not just about winning races, though that's fun too. It's about playing. The freedom you have to do whatever you want is amazing. They've got everything from souped-up classics to hypercars that look like they belong in a sci-fi movie. And the customization. You can tweak everything. Paint jobs, performance, even little decals. It's like a car nerd's dream come true. But don't worry, you don't have to be a gearhead to enjoy it. The game does a great job of keeping things accessible. Whether you're a casual player or a hardcore racer, the controls are just buttery smooth, and the way each car handles feels unique. Want to go off-roading in a big, beefy truck? Go for it. Prefer zipping through city streets in a sleek sports car? Done. It's not just racing, it's an experience. And the best part? You don't even have to race if you don't want to. There are stunt challenges, speed traps, exploration events. It's like a big automotive playground. And the seasonal changes? Genius. The world evolves over time. So one week you might be racing in dry deserts, and the next you're dealing with torrential rain. It keeps things fresh and gives you an excuse to keep coming back. Persona 5. Without spoiling anything, you play as a high school student with a secret double life. By day, you're navigating the trials and tribulations of school, classes, exams, and hanging out with your friends. But by night, you're a phantom thief, sneaking into mysterious realms to change hearts and fight evil. It's as cool as it sounds, trust me. The menus, the animations, even the transitions, everything feels like it was designed by someone with a passion for flair. Every little detail screams, we're going to make this look amazing, even if it's just a loading screen. And don't even get me started on the music. The jazzy soundtrack is the kind of thing you'll be humming for weeks after you play. And the gameplay. It's this perfect blend of turn-based combat and life simulation, and somehow it works beautifully. One moment you're strategizing in these gorgeous, surreal dungeons, pulling off stylish combos and unleashing your personas, which, by the way, are basically manifestations of your inner psyche. The next, you're deciding how to spend your free time. Do you study for your next exam? Work a part-time job, or go out for ramen with your friends? The balance between these two sides of the game is just chef's kiss. What I love most, though, is how Persona 5 makes everything you do feel meaningful. Spending time with your friends, called confidants, isn't just fun, it also gives you bonuses in battle. Doing well in school or working a part-time job helps you build skills that open up even more opportunities. Even the smallest choices feel like they matter. Resident Evil 6, probably one of the most controversial entries in the Resident Evil series. When it came out, a lot of longtime fans were really disappointed, and it got a ton of hate for straying too far from the classic survival horror roots. One of the big criticisms was that it tried to do too much. The game had 4 separate campaigns, each with its own tone and gameplay style. You had Leon's campaign, which felt more like the traditional Resident Evil survival horror, But then you had Chris's and Jake's campaigns, which were full-on action shooters. It left some players feeling like the game had an identity crisis. It wasn't sure if it wanted to be horror or action, and that split the fanbase. But here's the thing. Resident Evil 6 isn't a bad game. It's just different. If you go in expecting a pure horror experience, yeah, you might be disappointed. But if you approach it as a crazy, action-packed adventure with some horror elements sprinkled in, there's a lot of fun to be had. The variety in the campaigns means there's something for everyone. And the co-op play was a big highlight for people who like playing with friends. And let's be honest, some of the hate was probably just because it wasn't what fans expected after the success of Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5. Those games were a hard act to follow. And RE6 took some big risks. Sure, not all of them landed, but it also had some really cool moments, epic boss battles, and impressive visuals for its time. Despite all the complaints, Resident Evil 6 still has some great moments. Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered. This game is, in a word, awesome. I mean, we're talking about one of the most exhilarating open-world experiences out there. Right from the start, the game drops you into this beautifully crafted New York City. And let me just say, it's not just any New York. It's a New York packed with detail, life, and personality. You've got bustling streets, landmarks, and people actually going about their day. It's honestly such a joy just exploring, whether you're swinging past Central Park or chilling on the top of the Empire State Building. The world feels alive, and it makes being Spider-Man feel real. And that web-swinging mechanic, oh, it's a dream. There's this rhythm to it that you quickly get into, and before you know it, you're zipping through buildings, performing aerial tricks, and just feeling unstoppable. I've got to say, even if there were no missions and all you could do was swing around, it would still be a blast. It's that good. The movement is smooth, intuitive, and just fun. There's no other word for it. It makes you feel like a pro within minutes, yet it's so satisfying that you'll still be enjoying it hours later. And then there's the combat. It's a perfect blend of strategy, agility, and good old-fashioned brawling. You're not just swinging fists. You're flipping, dodging, using gadgets, and keeping an eye on the environment. The game lets you approach fights however you want. You can go in stealthy, plan out your attacks, or just jump in and start kicking. It's totally up to you. Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Honestly, this game is one of the most fun entries in the whole Assassin's Creed series. I feel like it doesn't get talked about as much as it should, but the second you start running around Victorian London as Jacob or Evie Fry, you realize just how much of a blast it is. Syndicate nails the feel of 1860s London in a way that's just incredible. You've got the foggy streets, the towering landmarks like Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, and that gritty industrial vibe where factories are pumping smoke into the sky. The attention to detail is nuts. You can literally ride horse-drawn carriages through the city or scale the rooftops and just take in the view. It really makes you feel like you've been dropped right into that time period. And the fact that you get to switch between two protagonists, that was such a smart move. Jacob and Evie have totally different vibes, and it keeps things fresh. Jacob's all about getting his hands dirty and brawling with enemies, while Evie's more of a stealthy, strategic assassin. I loved switching between them, depending on the mission, or how I felt like playing. And the sibling dynamic between them is just great. The combat in Syndicate feels super smooth too. It's fast, it's brutal, and it's a lot of fun, especially when you're just diving into a group of enemies and throwing punches. Plus, the new grappling hook, total game changer. 1 second you're on the street, the next you're ziplining across rooftops like Batman. It's the most fun I've had with movement in an AC game for sure. At the end of the day, this game is just fun. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. From the very beginning, you're dropped into this massive open world, and it's completely up to you what to do next. No hand-holding, no strict path, just pure, unfiltered exploration. One of the coolest things about Breath of the Wild is the sense of freedom. You see a mountain way off in the distance? You can climb it. You spot a random little forest on your way to a shrine? Go explore it. You might find a secret or even stumble on a side quest. And the game rewards you for being curious. Everywhere you go, there's something hidden, some surprise, some little detail that makes you feel like the developers thought of everything. And speaking of surprises, the physics and chemistry systems in this game are unreal. You can use the environment to solve puzzles in ways that feel totally unique to you. Like, if you're clever enough, you can create crazy solutions to puzzles that don't even feel right. But the game encourages that. You can even use metal weapons to attract lightning during storms or set grass on fire to create updrafts for your glider. It's like a sandbox that's just begging you to mess around and get creative. And let's not forget the combat. It's challenging, but in a really rewarding way. You don't just mindlessly hack and slash. You need to time your dodges, be aware of your surroundings, and think about your strategy. The weapon durability system is a hot topic, but honestly, it adds to that survival feel. You're encouraged to experiment with different weapons and tactics, which keeps things interesting. Skyrim. Where do you even start with a game like Skyrim? This game is just huge. It's one of those games that just keeps pulling you in, no matter how many times you've played it before. You boot it up thinking, I'll just play for an hour. And next thing you know, it's 3 a.m. and you're sneaking around in the Thieves Guild or fighting a dragon on top of a mountain. First off, the world. It's absolutely massive and it feels alive, from the snowy peaks of the Throat of the World to the rolling plains of Whiterun. Every part of Skyrim feels like it has its own story to tell. And the fact that you can go anywhere, do anything, it's such a freeing experience. Like, if you see a mountain in the distance, you can actually go there. And you never know what's going to happen along the way. Maybe you run into a giant, or you stumble upon some hidden cave with its own little quest line. It's just endless discovery. The combat, well, it's classic Skyrim. It's not about being super fancy or fast-paced, but it's about choice. You want to swing a giant axe? Go for it. Prefer sneaking around with a bow or dual-wielding daggers? Totally doable. Or maybe you want to go full wizard, summoning flames and raising the dead. Whatever your style, the game lets you play exactly how you want. And speaking of choice, the quests are insane. Sure, there's the main story about you being the Dragonborn with the whole saving the world thing. But honestly, the side quests are where it's at. You can get caught up joining the Dark Brotherhood and becoming an assassin, or leading the companions and becoming a werewolf. Infamous Second Son. It's such a great pick when looking back at favorite games, especially after all these years. It's one of those games that might not always get mentioned in the big best of all time list, but for those who played it, it really leaves a lasting impression. The game came out as one of the earlier titles for the PS4, and honestly, it still holds up really well. You step into the shoes of Delson Rowe, a rebellious guy who suddenly gets these insane superpowers. What I love about the game is how good it feels to actually use those powers. Whether you're running up buildings, gliding through the air, or just wrecking shop with your abilities, the movement and action feel super smooth and fun. The game absolutely nails that sense of power, which, let's face it, is what we're all here for in a superhero-style game. Seattle is the backdrop for all the action, and they did such a good job with the city's vibe. It's not a carbon copy of the real Seattle, but it's got enough personality to feel alive, and the way the environment changes based on your actions is a nice touch. That whole dynamic, where your choices matter, whether you want to be a hero or lean into a more destructive, rebellious path, adds a layer of replayability. And honestly, both paths are equally fun. Infamous Second Son really nails that feeling of freedom, and the pacing keeps you engaged from start to finish. It's one of those games where you can easily lose hours just exploring, testing out your powers, and getting into epic showdowns with the game's enemies. We have Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. This game is a pure adrenaline rush on wheels, a kart racing masterpiece that doesn't just pay homage to the classic, but revs it up for a new generation. It's all about fast-paced, chaotic racing with vibrant tracks, hilarious characters, and some truly wild power-ups that will have you laughing and yelling at the screen in equal measure. At its core, the game is an exhilarating ride through cleverly designed tracks filled with twists, jumps, shortcuts, and plenty of hazards to keep you on your toes. It's not just about racing, it's about mastering the art of drifting, boosting, and timing your power-ups perfectly to leave your rivals in the dust, or knock them off the track entirely. The controls are tight, intuitive, and wonderfully responsive, making every race feel like a test of skill rather than luck. The variety of characters is another big highlight. Every racer brings their own quirky personality to the game, with some fan favorites from the original making a comeback and a few fun surprises added to the roster. Customization takes things up a notch, letting you tweak your karts and characters with a ton of unlockable skins, decals, and wheels. It's a kart racing playground that lets you put your personal stamp on every race. Multiplayer is where the game really shines. Whether you're battling it out online or settling grudges in split-screen mode, the chaos ramps up tenfold when you're playing against friends or strangers. Max Payne 3. One of the things that hit me right away was how smooth the gameplay is. The gunplay is so satisfying. That bullet time mechanic is still here, and it's just as awesome as ever. Nothing beats diving through the air in slow motion, watching bullets fly by, while you take down a group of bad guys in a ridiculously cinematic way. I've got to say, Rockstar really nailed the action sequences. You feel like you're playing through an action movie, especially with how they blend the cutscenes into the gameplay seamlessly. It keeps you hooked the entire time. The game does a great job of blending the old and new. It's still got that noir vibe in the narrative and Max's inner monologues, but with a fresh twist. And while it's different from the first two games, it feels like a natural progression for Max as a character. He's still trying to run from his past, but no matter how far he goes or how many bullets he fires, he can't escape it. And honestly, he's pretty much at rock bottom when the game starts. You can really feel the weight of everything that's happened to him. I think one of the things that surprised me was how tough it can be. It's not an easy game. You really need to think about how you approach each situation. Especially when you're low on ammo or painkillers, it makes every decision count, and every time you survive a brutal firefight, you feel like you earned it. So yeah, if you love intense action, a deep emotional story, and a character who's as flawed as they come, Max Payne 3 is absolutely worth your time. It's not just a game, it's an experience. Gears 5. Even if you're new to the Gears series, trust me, Gears 5 is an amazing place to jump in. It's got everything you'd want in a blockbuster game, great characters, intense firefights, and a world that's equal parts beautiful and brutal. The combat in Gears 5 feels incredibly smooth, and every gunfight has that intense, cover-based strategy that makes Gears so satisfying. Popping out from cover, landing that perfect headshot, or getting up close and personal with the Lancer's chainsaw never gets old. There's something just downright satisfying about how combat feels here. Each weapon has a unique kick to it, so you're never just mindlessly firing away. It's all about timing and positioning. Plus, with the addition of Jack, your handy little drone buddy, you get some new abilities that mix things up in fun ways. He can cloak you, zap enemies, and even fetch items, so he's a true lifesaver in tight spots. And let's take a second to appreciate the world. Gears 5 introduces these open-world sections where you can explore on this sweet vehicle called the Skiff. Just zipping across the snowy tundra or the desert sands is a vibe all on its own. The world feels alive and dynamic, with lots of cool, hidden places to discover. It's not exactly a fully open world, but it's enough to let you roam around and soak in the atmosphere, and it really breaks up the action nicely. You're not just going from one big fight to the next. You actually have time to breathe, explore, and take in some amazing views. The story here actually has some serious depth. Horizon Zero Dawn. You ever play a game that completely pulls you into its world and makes you forget time exists? From the very start, it hit me with its vast open world and beautiful landscapes. It's like stepping into a future where nature and machines are in this strange yet fascinating balance. The contrast of lush forests, snowy mountains, and decaying remnants of the old world just blew me away. I'd find myself stopping, not to complete a mission, but just to take in the view. What really pulled me in was Aloy, the main character. She's strong, independent, and driven, but still relatable. Her journey to uncover the truth about her past kept me hooked, and I felt a connection with her that not many games manage to achieve. Every interaction, every choice made me feel like I was walking her path, not just controlling her through a screen. The machines in Horizon are some of the most unique enemies I've ever encountered. They're massive, unpredictable, and have this alien feel to them, yet they belong perfectly in this world. Each machine required a different approach, forcing me to think and adapt. It never felt repetitive. Instead, it kept things fresh, especially when you take down something huge like a Thunderjaw. I remember the first time I did, and it felt like a massive victory. The combat made me feel like a hunter, not just a fighter, and that added a layer of depth I really appreciated. The story also has a lot going for it. There's mystery, there's emotion, and there's this haunting sense of loss throughout the game. Dying Light. You know, there's something about Dying Light that just pulls you in. It's not just another zombie game. And trust me, I've played my share. What really grabbed me when I first picked it up was the way it mixed parkour with zombie survival. I mean, You're not just running from zombies, you're vaulting over fences, climbing buildings, and pulling off these crazy fluid parkour moves that make you feel like you're actually there. It's like the city is your playground, but with the constant threat of the undead breathing down your neck. That mix of freedom and fear, it's exhilarating. And the city of Harran? It's gritty, dirty, and oozing with atmosphere. During the day, you're mostly dealing with the slow, lumbering zombies, and you start to feel kind of bold, like, yeah, I got this. You're scavenging, crafting weapons, taking out a few zombies here and there, feeling pretty good about yourself. But as soon as night falls, it's like the game flips the script. You go from being the predator to the prey. Those volatiles, they still haunt me, honestly. The first time one spotted me, I panicked and barely escaped. The night cycle adds this whole other layer of tension, making you think twice before staying out too late. One of my favorite things, though, is how the game encourages creativity. You're not just limited to using guns or blunt objects. No, you can modify weapons, throw firecrackers to distract the undead, or set traps. I remember finding a baseball bat and modding it to electrocute zombies. Devil May Cry 5. This game is just pure action-packed insanity. From the second you start, it's all high-energy, over-the-top combat, with Dante, Nero, and V, just going off in their own badass ways. The combat is smooth as hell, and juggling demons in the air while pulling off combos? So satisfying. I mean, it makes you feel like you're some rockstar demon hunter every second you're playing. And can we talk about the characters for a second? Dante is, of course, the legend, and his attitude is just as cocky and hilarious as ever. But I gotta say, Nero's new arm mechanic is awesome. You can pull off so many different moves with his devil breakers, and it adds a whole new layer to the combat. I love how every arm has its own unique feel, whether you're blasting enemies or zipping around the battlefield. Then there's V. At first, I wasn't sure what to think of him, but his combat style is so unique. Controlling demons to do the fighting while you hang back? It's weird at first, but when you get the hang of it, it's pretty damn cool. He's like this mysterious, edgy dude, but in a fun way. The boss fights, though? Incredible. Every boss has this epic scale to it, and the game is great at making each fight feel intense without being frustrating. And the way the music kicks in when you're doing well? That's gotta be one of my favorite parts. The dynamic soundtrack literally gets better the more stylish you get, so it's like the game is rewarding you for being awesome. Honestly, DMC5 has some of the tightest, most fluid combat I've ever played in an action game. Hitman 3. Now this is a game that just gets the whole stealth genre right. I love how it puts you in the shoes of Agent 47, and suddenly you feel like this ultimate, cool-headed assassin. What makes it special is the freedom it gives you to approach every mission how you want. Like, you're dropped into these huge, intricately designed sandboxes, and then it's up to you to figure out how you're going to take down your targets. Do you go all stealthy, blend into the crowd, and take your time? Or do you throw caution to the wind, cause chaos, and improvise? Either way, it's a blast. The level design in Hitman 3 is just genius. I'm still thinking about the Dubai mission, starting at the top of that skyscraper. Looking out over the city from a literal cloud level, it's breathtaking. And then there's the Dartmoor level, which is like something straight out of a detective novel. You can actually pose as a detective investigating a murder while planning a murder. It's just so creative, giving you this puzzle box of opportunities to play around with. And there's always that moment when you figure out a crazy way to eliminate your target that feels so satisfying, like, I can't believe I just pulled that off. Another thing I love is how replayable it is. You finish a mission, and then you start thinking, wait, what if I tried it this way? Or, what if I used that secret passage I missed the first time? It's not about following some rigid plan. It's about adapting on the fly and making it work. Honestly, Hitman 3 is one of those games that I keep coming back to. It's smart, stylish, and just a ton of fun. Fallout 76. I know this game got quite a bit of heat when it first came out, but after all the updates and expansions, it's a totally different experience now. Trust me. Bethesda really put in the work here, and it shows. First off, if you're into Fallout for the whole post-apocalyptic vibe, Fallout 76 still nails that perfectly. You're out there exploring the ruins of West Virginia, which is way more beautiful than I expected in an end-of-the-world kind of way. The landscapes are huge and varied, with misty forests, eerie bogs, and even mountainous areas where you'll get a stunning view of the wasteland. Honestly, the setting is a character in itself. And yes, it's multiplayer, meaning you'll run into other players as you explore. But don't worry, it's not like some chaotic battle royale or anything. You can still choose to play mostly on your own, focus on your story quests, or even just wander around, soaking in the atmosphere. But having others around adds this cool element of unpredictability, like maybe you're all just hanging out around a campfire, or someone pops up to trade supplies. It makes the world feel more alive, which is pretty rare in the Fallout series. Speaking of camps, let's talk camp building, which might be one of my favorite parts of the game. You can set up your own little homestead anywhere in the wilderness, and then customize it however you want. I mean, some people have made full-on mansions out there, and I'm over here just trying to get my campfire going. It's like a mix of Fallout survival with Sims creativity. The Surge. I went into it thinking, okay, another sci-fi post-apocalyptic action RPG. But it's so much more than that. The whole concept of this broken-down, futuristic factory setting is just awesome. It's gritty, industrial, and feels like everything is falling apart, which really adds to that sense of desperation as you're trying to survive. And honestly, the world building is better than I expected. You slowly uncover bits of the story as you explore, and the more you dig, the more you realize just how messed up everything is. Now, I've got to talk about the combat because that's really the star of the show here. It's tough, methodical, and every fight feels like it could be your last. But here's the twist that sets it apart. The whole targeting limbs mechanic. It's genius. You don't just hack and slash randomly. You're strategically aiming for enemy body parts. Want that awesome new arm gear? You better take it from your enemy. It makes every encounter feel like a high-stakes chess match, where you're constantly weighing the risk of going for the kill or trying to grab new loot. And the exosuit? Such a cool feature. It feels like you're wearing this clunky, powerful piece of machinery, and as you upgrade it, you can feel yourself getting stronger. But at the same time, the enemies ramp up in difficulty, so you're never too comfortable. It keeps you on your toes, for sure. Plus, the suit customization adds a ton of variety to the gameplay. So, yeah, the Surge is a gem. Kingdom Come Deliverance. It's not your typical medieval RPG, and that's exactly what makes it so special. When I first started, I was blown away by how grounded it feels. You're not some chosen one or knight in shining armor. You're just Henry, a blacksmith's son. And that's one of the best things about it. The game doesn't hold your hand, and it really throws you into this unforgiving world of Bohemia. It's gritty, realistic, and refreshingly different from other RPGs that lean into fantasy. The realism in this game is next level. There's no magic or dragons here. Everything is based on actual historical events, and the attention to detail is crazy. The armor, the weapons, the way people live. It's all so authentic. And that extends to the gameplay, too. The combat system, for example, is super unique. It's not just about button mashing your way through fights. It's tactical, slow-paced, and takes a lot of practice to get right. Sword fighting in particular feels so different from any other game. It's all about timing, positioning, and strategy. You really need to pay attention to how your opponent moves. What I love about Kingdom Come Deliverance is how immersive the world is. The landscape is stunning, and the towns and villages feel alive. You walk through the streets, and people are going about their daily routines. There's a sense that life continues, whether you're there or not. The historical accuracy is something else too. The game takes place during an actual period in history. Doom 4. This game brought back the old-school shooter in the best way possible, but still didn't take home the Game of the Year award. And I'm still scratching my head over that, because Doom was an absolute beast when it dropped. It was like ID Software said, let's show everyone how a real first-person shooter is done. First of all, Doom nailed the pacing. It was fast, chaotic, and brutal. Everything you want in a Doom game. They took that classic run-and-gun formula and cranked it up to 11. You're constantly moving, jumping, and tearing through demons like a one-man wrecking crew. The combat was a symphony of destruction, where stopping meant death. And let's not forget the glory kills, where you get rewarded for ripping apart demons up close in the most satisfying ways possible. The thing that made Doom stand out was how unapologetically old school it was. No cover mechanics, no reloading, just pure adrenaline-fueled action. It felt like a return to form for the genre. And in a sea of shooters that were leaning more toward tactical, slow-paced gameplay, Doom was like a wake-up call. It reminded everyone why the original Doom was such a phenomenon back in the day, why it didn't win Game of the Year. One reason could be that it released in a pretty stacked year. 2016 had Overwatch taking a lot of the spotlight, and multiplayer shooters were all the rage. Doom, on the other hand, was a more solo-focused experience. Sure, it had a multiplayer mode, but that's not what people played it for. A Way Out. This game really caught me off guard in the best way possible. If you've ever wanted a true co-op experience, like a game where you have to rely on another person to progress, this is it. And it's not just some side feature. Co-op is literally baked into the entire game. You can't play this solo, and honestly, that's what makes it awesome. So, you're basically playing as these two guys, Leo and Vincent, who are trying to break out of prison. But it's not just a prison break game. It's so much more. You get to know these two characters, their stories, and how their lives are intertwined. What's cool is that both players control one of them, and each player has their own unique perspective and role in the story. It feels like you're part of a movie, where every scene is intense and meaningful. The way the split screen works is genius. Even though you're doing different things sometimes, like one person might be sneaking around while the other is in a fistfight, it all flows together. And you have these moments where you've got to coordinate with your partner, timing a move or making a plan to escape or fight. And when you pull it off, it feels so satisfying. You really need to communicate and work together, which makes it such a fun experience if you're playing with a friend. One of the best parts? The variety. You're not just breaking out of prison and that's it. No way. There are car chases, stealth sections, emotional moments, and even a few mini-games that you wouldn't expect. What I love is how the story keeps building. It's not just about escaping. It's about the relationship between Leo and Vincent. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. It takes everything Call of Duty is known for, fast-paced combat, intense firefights, and cranks it up to the max. This game isn't just about quick reflexes. It's about living out those high-stakes, cinematic moments that you'd normally only see in movies. Modern Warfare 2 is probably one of the most memorable campaigns in the whole Call of Duty series. What I love about the campaign is how well it balances action with quieter, suspenseful moments. It's not just non-stop explosions and chaos, though there's plenty of that. There are also these more thoughtful moments, where you have to rely on stealth, tactics, or just careful observation. It's a cool change of pace, and it makes those big, explosive moments hit even harder. Plus, the story is packed with memorable characters. You'll see some familiar faces like Soap and Captain Price, and the chemistry between them is fantastic. It's like being in an action movie, where every character has their own vibe, and you end up feeling genuinely invested in what happens to them. This campaign is really clever about mixing things up, so you're never doing the same thing twice. There's a little bit of everything. Stealth missions, full-blown shootouts, and even some sequences that almost feel like puzzles, where you have to think about how to use the environment to your advantage. Every mission has its own personality, and each one is designed to keep you engaged and constantly adapting to new situations. It's the kind of game where you never know what's coming next. World War Z, this game is all about pure, chaotic fun, and it doesn't hold back. You drop right into the middle of a global outbreak, and from the first few minutes, it's non-stop swarms, loud gunfire, and the kind of team-based mayhem that makes co-op shooters such a blast. The best part? The zombies don't trickle in, they flood. Walls of them. It's wild, and it never gets old watching hundreds of them pour over ledges and down streets like a tidal wave of chaos. Gameplay is fast and focused. You've got different classes to choose from, each with their own gear and skills. And the setup works great whether you're rolling solo with bots or jumping in with friends. The teamwork feels natural, covering each other's backs, setting traps, holding choke points, and when it all clicks, it's incredibly satisfying. You really feel like you're surviving together, not just blasting through missions on your own. The missions are spread out across different parts of the world, and each one brings something unique to the table. You're in cities, subways, rooftops, always moving, always shooting, always under pressure. There's no time to relax. But that's what makes it such a good time. It's all about managing the chaos, keeping your cool, and making sure your squad doesn't get overwhelmed. There's a progression system that keeps you hooked. As you keep playing, you unlock better weapons, new perks, and gear upgrades that actually make a difference. Diablo 4. It's all about the thrill of combat and the promise of loot. Whether you're summoning dark magic, charging into battle as a tanky powerhouse, or raining arrows from a distance, every choice feels powerful and satisfying. But here's the kicker, this isn't just a game where you hack through enemies mindlessly. Combat in Diablo 4 feels strategic. It's about reading the battlefield, knowing when to go all in and when to pull back, and chaining together abilities in ways that make you feel unstoppable. Oh, and the enemies? They don't go easy on you. They're relentless, varied, and sometimes downright terrifying, forcing you to stay sharp and constantly adapt. Now, let's talk about the loot, because honestly, what's Diablo without loot, right? It's everywhere, and every piece you pick up feels like a mini jackpot. It's not just about shiny gear. It's about finding the perfect combination that makes your build truly click. Maybe it's a weapon that boosts your crits, or a piece of armor that lets you shrug off hits like a pro. The excitement of checking your inventory after every fight never gets old. Exploration in Diablo 4 is another highlight. The world is massive, and it feels alive in a way that keeps you curious. You're not just moving from one dungeon to the next. You're uncovering secrets, stumbling upon events, and discovering challenges that are as rewarding as they are unpredictable. It's a world that begs you to get lost in it, and there's always something waiting to be found. Rise, Son of Rome. You know, when I first fired up Rise, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. I'd heard mixed things over the years, but it really surprised me in a lot of good ways. Right from the start, the visuals pulled me in. I mean, this game is stunning. The world of ancient Rome looks so alive, from the grand architecture to the battlefields dripping with atmosphere. It's one of those games where you can just stop and admire the scenery. But Rise isn't just about looking pretty. The combat, while simple, is incredibly satisfying. Yeah, it's not the most complex system out there, but once you get into the rhythm of sword swings, dodges, and finishing moves, it feels epic. There's a real sense of power behind each blow, and the slow-motion finishers, pure cinematic brilliance. It made me feel like a gladiator, right in the thick of battle. The story, too, deserves some praise. Marius Titus, the game's protagonist, has a journey that's as much about personal revenge as it is about the fate of Rome itself. The way the narrative unfolds keeps you invested. And let's not forget the voice acting. It's top-notch, really bringing the characters and drama to life. One of the coolest things about Rise is how it captures the brutal reality of Roman warfare. You can tell the developers paid attention to detail, especially in the way soldiers fought, and how battles were choreographed. There's something genuinely immersive about leading your troops through a formation, calling out orders, and fighting alongside them. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. If you played Final Fantasy VII Remake, you're already familiar with the epic world and characters, but Rebirth just takes everything up a notch. Midgar was this dark, gritty industrial setting in Remake, but Rebirth opens things up. You get to see more of Gaia, explore lush forests, massive plains, and mysterious ruins that feel like they're hiding 1,000 secrets. And then, there's the combat. Oh boy, if you thought the battles in Remake were good, Rebirth steps it up. It's still that real-time, action-packed combat system, but everything feels smoother and more refined. Switching between characters mid-battle is seamless, and they each bring something totally unique to the table. Cloud's powerful sword slashes, Tifa's quick martial arts, Barrett's massive gun arm. Everyone has a role, and you get to experiment with strategies that make every encounter exciting. And the materia system is back, so you're constantly tweaking your setups, figuring out the best combos for each fight. Oh, and the bosses? Unreal. Square Enix did not hold back. Each boss feels like its own mini-movie, with incredible animations, massive attacks, and a level of intensity that keeps you on the edge of your seat. And it's not just about the challenge. Each boss battle feels personal, like you're part of something epic. And the summons, summoning Ifrit, Shiva, or one of the other iconic Final Fantasy summons, just feels so satisfying. They show up, wreck shop, and leave you thinking, yep, that's why I love Final Fantasy. Ghost of Tsushima. From the moment you start playing, it just feels like you're stepping into this beautifully crafted world. The first thing that really grabbed me was the landscape. The island of Tsushima is stunning, with these rolling hills, forests, and temples scattered all around. And the way the wind guides you instead of using a mini-map, that was such a cool touch. It makes you feel like you're part of the world, not just playing a game. The combat is another thing that I couldn't stop thinking about. It's so fluid and satisfying. At first, I was a bit nervous because samurai combat can be tricky, but the way it's designed here feels so intuitive. You switch between stances depending on who you're fighting, and it just flows so well. Every sword fight feels like it has weight. There were times when I would stop and challenge a group of enemies to a standoff, just because it felt so epic. You literally feel like a samurai. Speaking of feeling like a samurai, the story really pulls you in. It's all about Jin Sakai and his struggle between upholding the samurai code and doing what needs to be done to save his people. It gets you thinking, you know? Like, what would you do in his shoes? Would you stick to the rules or adapt to survive? The game really leans into that inner conflict, and I found myself getting attached to Jin and the other characters, especially his uncle. The emotional moments hit hard, and let's not forget the duels. Oh man, the duels. Some of the most intense moments in the game for sure. You face off against these really skilled enemies. BioShock 2 Remastered. When people talk about the BioShock series, BioShock 2 sometimes gets a bit overshadowed by its big siblings, BioShock and BioShock Infinite. But you know what? BioShock 2 absolutely deserves its own spotlight. It's like discovering this hidden gem that's been sitting in plain sight the whole time. Every time you step into that murky, neon-lit world, it's like visiting a strange, haunted wonderland. Rapture's got that perfect mix of beauty and horror. Like, you're constantly amazed by how stunning the place is, but also can't shake off that creepy feeling. And here, in BioShock 2, you get to explore whole new parts of the city that you didn't see in the first game. It feels familiar, but also fresh, like revisiting an old dream and finding new details everywhere. But what really makes BioShock 2 stand out is the role you play. This time, you're not just any character, you're a big daddy. I mean, come on, how awesome is that? You get to stomp around in this massive diving suit, wield a freaking drill, and protect little sisters. And let me tell you, there's something really special about seeing Rapture from the perspective of a big daddy. You feel powerful, sure, but there's also a sense of responsibility that wasn't there before. It's a surprisingly emotional experience, and honestly, it hits harder than I expected. The combat feels smoother and more intense, especially since you can dual-wield your plasmids and weapons at the same time. Avowed. If you've ever wished to dive headfirst into a world where magic feels tangible, choices truly matter, and exploration is practically begging you to get lost in it, this game is exactly what you're looking for. Now, here's the thing about Avowed. It's set in the same universe as Obsidian's Pillars of Eternity series, but don't let that scare you if you've never touched those games before. You don't need prior knowledge to jump in and enjoy what Avowed has to offer. Think of it as a new doorway into this rich world, where you're given the freedom to shape your adventure the way you want. It's welcoming, accessible, and absolutely bursting with lore for those who want to dig deeper. One of the coolest parts of Avowed is how it handles magic and combat. This isn't just about flinging fireballs or swinging swords. You feel a genuine sense of connection to your arsenal. Whether you're crafting devastating spell combinations or making use of more traditional weaponry, the game makes every action feel purposeful. It's all about giving you tools to tackle challenges your way. You want to go in like a one-person army. Prefer something sneakier or more methodical. That's on the table too. The game doesn't just hand you decisions. It throws you into situations that make you think. You're not just clicking dialogue options. You're shaping relationships, influencing factions, and, in many cases, questioning your own moral compass. It's like the game is daring you to leave your mark on its world. Exploration is another huge win here. Of Kena Bridge of Spirits. From the moment I started playing, I was just blown away by how stunning everything looked. It's like stepping into a Pixar movie, but you're in control. The art style is so vibrant and colorful, and the way they bring this magical world to life is just mesmerizing. Every detail feels like it was handcrafted with so much love, from the lush forests to the little creatures, the rot. I mean, those rot are just adorable, right? They're like these little black, fluffy creatures that follow you around, and they're not only cute, they're super helpful too. The gameplay, though, man, that's where it gets really fun. It's got that action-adventure feel, with some Zelda-like puzzle-solving and exploration. The combat is super smooth, and the combination of your staff attacks and the rot helping you out is such a cool mechanic. I loved how you can use the rot to distract enemies or empower your attacks. And the way the game gradually gives you new abilities keeps things fresh. Plus, those boss fights, some of them are tough, Like, way tougher than I expected. They really make you strategize, which is a nice surprise in a game that looks so cozy on the surface. And speaking of cozy, the world is just so nice to explore. The puzzles are really well designed too. Not too hard, but they make you feel smart when you solve them. I remember one where you had to use the rot to move objects around and align things just right, and it was just the perfect balance of challenge and satisfaction. Warhammer Space Marine 2. Honestly, I had pretty high expectations going in, especially since I loved the first game, but this one really blew me away. I just finished it, and I'm still buzzing with adrenaline. If you're into anything Warhammer or just a fan of solid, brutal action games, this one hits all the right notes. Right from the start, I was hooked. You jump back into the boots of Captain Titus, and let me tell you, they've cranked everything up. Titus feels like an absolute force of nature, and the game really nails that power fantasy of being a space marine. Every time I smashed into a group of Tyranids, it felt like I was carving through them like a god of war. And these Tyranids are terrifying. The way they swarm you, it's a mix of pure chaos and strategic survival. Speaking of strategy, the game's combat is deeper than it looks at first. Sure, you can charge in swinging that chainsword and ripping through enemies, but you've got to think a bit too. You can't just button mash your way to victory, especially with those massive bosses. They've got these intricate patterns, so it feels like a dance between brute force and tactical moves. When I finally took down one of the bigger enemies after like 15 minutes of dodging and countering, it was such a satisfying moment. I felt like I earned that victory. And the story is more than just a mindless shooter, that's for sure. There are moments where the weight of war, the cost of being a space marine, really hit. Titus's arc feels more fleshed out this time around. He's not just a badass in power armor. Watch Dogs Legion. This game really took the whole open-world hacking thing to another level. The first thing that hit me was the setting, London. And not just any version of London, but this near-future dystopian London where everything is under heavy surveillance, and the government is basically a dictatorship. The way they captured the city, though, it's spot on. From Big Ben to Camden Market, every corner of London feels alive, and it's just cool to explore this iconic city in a way you've never seen before. But the real hook for Legion? It's got to be that play as anyone system. Like, literally anyone you see walking down the street, you can recruit into your squad. I remember at first I thought, okay, but surely this is just a gimmick, right? Nope. You actually build a team of characters, and each one has their own backstory, abilities, and quirks. I had this old lady on my team. Seriously, a grandma. And she was walking around, slow as anything, but she had some tech skills that were unbeatable. There's just something hilarious about seeing her take down an enemy in the most casual way possible. And that's what's fun about it. Everyone you recruit adds something different to your team, and it makes you think about how you approach missions. You could be rolling with a construction worker who can call in a cargo drone to fly over buildings, or a spy with a silenced pistol and a fancy sports car. And of course, Legion is all about that hacking life. You're controlling drones, hijacking cars, hacking cameras, all with a few button presses. Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. This game is seriously underrated and deserves way more love. Imagine an open-world action game set in the bustling streets of Hong Kong, where you play as an undercover cop tangled up in the city's dangerous criminal underworld. It's like GTA, but with a unique twist that really sets it apart. And let's not forget the driving. Sleeping Dogs has some of the most fun driving mechanics out there. It's super arcadey, and you can do crazy stunts, hijack cars on the go, and even ram other cars off the road. There's something so satisfying about zooming through the city, dodging traffic, and knowing you can hop out at any time to start a fistfight. The city is alive with neon lights, crowded markets, and tons of little side activities that make it feel so authentic. You can go sing karaoke. Yes, karaoke. Try your luck at street races, or just cruise around and soak in the atmosphere. The developers did a fantastic job capturing the vibe of Hong Kong. And it's a city you actually want to explore. One of the best parts of Sleeping Dogs is the hand-to-hand combat. It's like a martial arts movie come to life. You're throwing punches, countering moves, and using your environment in the coolest ways. You can slam enemies into fish tanks, toss them off balconies, and even use random objects around you to gain the upper hand. So, if you're into action games with a great story and a city that feels alive and vibrant, Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition is absolutely worth checking out. Far Cry New Dawn. Now, I know this game has had its fair share of mixed reactions, and some people wrote it off without really giving it a chance. People saw New Dawn as more of a spin-off or a standalone expansion than a full Far Cry title. It's a bit shorter, and yes, some assets are reused from Far Cry 5, which led to some feeling like Ubisoft was just rehashing content. But the thing is, New Dawn takes those familiar elements and mixes them up with new mechanics that are actually a blast to play. They introduced this whole light RPG system where enemies have different levels, and you can craft and upgrade weapons to take them down. It's a bit of a departure for Far Cry, but it's fun. And the weapon upgrades add this cool progression element that feels rewarding as you build up your gear. Another cool feature in Far Cry New Dawn is the expeditions. These are missions that take you out of Hope County to different locations around the US, like a deserted amusement park or an aircraft carrier, to scavenge resources. It's such a cool way to break up the gameplay, and it really gives you the sense that the world outside Hope County is also chaotic and dangerous. These missions add variety and give you a chance to explore different environments, which is something you don't typically get in a single location Far Cry game. And let's not overlook that classic Far Cry chaos. New Dawn is packed with wild moments. 1 minute you're sneaking through enemy territory, and the next you're riding a saw blade shooting crossbow. Uncharted 4. This is one of those games that grabs you from the very first moment. If you've played any of the previous Uncharted games, you know what to expect. Action, adventure, treasure hunts, and a lot of intense moments. But Uncharted 4 just hits differently. It feels like a perfect blend of everything we loved about the series, but with a more mature, reflective tone. Nathan Drake is back, and this time he's facing his greatest challenge yet. What's really cool is that the game dives deeper into his personal life, showing a side of Nathan we don't usually see. He's older, more settled, and you can tell he's trying to move on from his treasure hunting days. But of course, things don't stay quiet for long. The game does a great job of building up that tension between wanting to leave the past behind and being pulled back in. It's something that feels relatable, even if we're not all globe-trotting adventurers. The visuals in this game are absolutely stunning. Whether you're scaling cliffs in Scotland or exploring ancient ruins in Madagascar, everything looks so incredibly detailed. Sometimes, I would just stop for a moment to take in the scenery, which is something I don't usually do in action games. The environments feel alive, and they draw you into the story in a way that makes it feel like you're watching a movie, but also in control of the action. Speaking of the action, Uncharted 4 nails the gameplay. The combat, the platforming, and even the puzzle solving all feel smooth and satisfying. NIER Automata, one of those games that didn't exactly explode onto the scene when it first launched, but ended up becoming a cult classic. If you've never played it, at first glance it might seem like just another action RPG. But this game much more than that. It's one of those titles that, once you dive in, completely pulls you in with its depth themes and that emotional roller coaster of a story. But here's the thing. When it first came out, not a lot of people were talking about it. Sure, it had fans, but it didn't immediately blow up like some big AAA game. Part of that might be because the original was kind of niche and never really became a mainstream hit. So it had this uphill battle where people weren't sure if it was worth checking out. The game is weird. And I say that in the best possible way. It doesn't hold your hand, it doesn't give you a typical RPG experience, and the story can get really out there. You've got androids questioning the meaning of life, robots acting like humans, existential dread, and more than a few mind-bending plot twists. For some players, it was a little too philosophical. It's not afraid to get deep and ask big questions. And that can be off-putting if you're just looking for a straightforward action game. Then there's the whole multiple endings thing. It doesn't just have a single ending, it has like 26 of them. Now, most of those are joke endings, but to get the full story, you actually have to play through the game multiple times, seeing it from different perspectives. Some people love that. It's one of the game's strengths, but others didn't really want to replay the same sections to uncover the whole narrative. The Evil Within, a game that brought some real old-school survival horror vibes, but didn't quite get the love it deserved. Honestly, this game flew under the radar for a lot of people, which is crazy because it was directed by Shinji Mikami, the guy behind Resident Evil 4. You'd think that would have guaranteed a Game of the Year contender, right? What made The Evil Within stand out was how it balanced psychological horror with intense, sometimes brutal action. The game wasn't just about jump scares, though it had plenty of those. It was about atmosphere, tension, and always keeping the player on edge. You never felt safe, which is what survival horror should be all about. And the world? Creepy, unsettling, filled with twisted, nightmarish creatures. It really felt like a descent into madness. But let's be real. The evil within wasn't for everyone, and that's probably why it didn't snag a Game of the Year. The difficulty was punishing at times, with limited ammo, tough enemies, and the kind of survival mechanics that could frustrate players who weren't prepared for that hardcore experience. It had this real old-school design that some players loved, but others found off-putting. People who were used to more action-focused horror games weren't always vibing with the slower, more methodical pace. The game was also pretty divisive when it came to its story. Some people thought the plot was all over the place, a little too cryptic and hard to follow, but here's the thing. If you were a fan of old-school survival horror, The Evil Within was a gem.